Naging bahagi ng Philippine Identification System o PhilSys. Ang
Makibahagi sa digital bayanihan laban sa COVID-19 gamit ang staysafe.ph. Ang staysafe.ph ay isang community-driven contact tracing, health condition reporting at social distancing system. Paano ba kamo? Bisitahin ang staysafe.ph at mag-register gamit ang iyong mobile number. Huwag mag-alala, safe din ang iyong data dahil sumusunod ang StaySafe sa Data Privacy Act. Pagkatapos ay marereport mo na ang health condition mo at ng iyong pamilya gamit ang StaySafe Health Checklist. Kung ikaw ay app user, manonotify ka rin sa mga lugar na may positive, probable, or suspected COVID-19 cases. Sa pamamagitan nito, makakaiwas ka at ang iyong pamilya sa pagpunta sa mga lugar na ito. O di kaya'y paalalahanan sila na maging mas maingat. May mga health tips at instructions din mula sa ating mga frontliners at healthcare professionals para matulungan ka sakaling ikaw o ang iyong pamilya ay makaranas ng sintomas ng COVID-19. Ang iyong data ay ma-upload sa isang secure database na ma-access ng ating gobyerno, lokal na pamahalaan at frontliners upang matulungan ang mga registrant na maaaring COVID-19 positive at pag-contact trace sa kanilang mga lamuha. Ang mga LGUs naman ay makakapag-monitor real-time ng mga COVID-19 cases sa inyong komunidad. Makakatulong ito upang makapagtalaga ng resources at assistance sa inyong barangay. Kailangan natin ang tulong ng bawat isa. Kaya nating mapigilan ang pagkalat pa ng COVID-19 basta tayo ay sama-sama. Kaya tara na, digital bayanihan gamit ang staysafe.ph. Stay at home, stay healthy, stay safe.
maging bahagi ng Philippine Identification System o PhilSys. Ang PhilSys ay may layuning mabigyan ng pangunahing patunay ng pagkakakilanlan ang bawat maging bahagi ng Philippine Identification System o PhilSys. Ang PhilSys ay may layuning mabigyan ng pangunahing patunay ng pagkakakilanlan ang bawat Pilipino para mas mapabilis ang mga transaksyon sa pampubliko at pribadong sektor. Dahil sa PhilSys, magkakaroon ng mas maayos at mabisang paraan ng paghahatid ng serbisyo sa mga mamamayan. Be PhilSys informed. Be PhilSys registered. Mayroong 3 hakbang ang PhilSys registration. Step 1. pagkolekta ng demographic information at pagset ng appointment para sa Step 2. Paano mag-online Step 1 registration? Mag-login sa register.philsys.gov.ph gamit ang iyong email address o mobile number. Ilagay ang OTP number na matatanggap via email o text. Pagkatapos ng successful login, ma-redirect ang iyong screen sa Fill Out Online Application Form page. Ilagay ang iyong demographic information. Siguruhing lahat ng boxes ay nasagutan. I-click ang Next at i-double check sa preview page ang iyong impormasyon. Pagkatapos ay i-click ang I have duly reviewed. Kasunod ay ang tanong kung ikaw ba ay mayroong bank o e-money account. Sagutin ito bago mag-proceed. Ang tanong na ito ay hindi bahagi ng iyong PhilSys registration, ngunit makatutulong sa research purposes para sa pagpapatibay ng PhilSys. Click Continue para magpatuloy sa Step 2 registration o appointment setting. Sa pag-book ng appointment para sa Step 2 registration, makikita ang pinakamalapit na registration center sa iyong lugar base sa iyong present address. Piliin ang iyong preferred registration center. Piliin din ang oras at petsa na ikaw ay available para sa Step 2 registration. Pagkatapos mag-confirm, may message box na magpa-pop out sa iyong screen para kumpirmahin ang mga detalye ng iyong appointment. Pagka-click ng Next, lalabas ang inyong appointment reference number o ARN. I-print o i-screenshot ito para maipakita sa iyong Step 2 registration. Kung hindi ma-print ang confirmation page sa online Step 1 registration, pwede ring ipakita ang email o text message na naglalaman ng iyong ARN pagdating sa registration center para sa Step 2. Paalala, huwag i-post o ipakita sa social media ang iyong pribadong impormasyon na may kaugnayan sa PhilSys katulad ng ARN. Step 2. Pag-validate ng supporting documents at pagkuha ng biometric information. Sa araw ng iyong appointment, pumunta sa designated registration center sa iyong lugar, dala ang iyong dokumento at appointment slip. Dito kukumpirmahin kung tama ang pre-encoded information mula sa Step 1 PhilSys registration. Kung kumpirmadong tama ang nakuhang impormasyon, kukunin na ng RegKit operator ang iyong biometric information tulad ng iyong iris scan, fingerprints at litrato. Panghuli ay kunin at itago ang kopya ng transaction slip. Ingatan ang transaction slip dahil ito ay gagamitin upang makuha ang iyong PhilID sa Step 3 registration. Step 3. Issuance at delivery ng PhilSys number o PSN at PhilID. Ihanda ang transaction slip mula sa Step 2 registration na gagamitin upang makuha ang iyong PhilID. Sa pamamagitan ng PhilPost, ligtas na maihahatid ang iyong PhilID sa iyong tirahan. Paalala lamang na walang bayad ang pagkuha ng PhilID. Ito ang 3 hakbang ng pagpaparehistro sa PhilSys. Simple at madali lang ang PhilSys registration kaya magparehistro na. Be PhilSys informed. Be PhilSys registered. Ano pang hinihintay mo? Magparehistro na sa online Step 1 at mag-book ng appointment para sa Step 2 sa register.philsys.gov.ph. Makilahok sa pag-unlad at magpakilala. Ito ang PhilSys. ID natin to!
Angat, lokal. Tamang pondo, angat serbisyo. Angat, lokal. Tamang pondo, angat serbisyo. Angat, lokal. Tamang pondo, angat serbisyo.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Welcome to the Fiscal Transparency Webinar Series Episode 3, Ambag Natin, Partisipasyon ng CSO sa Proseso at Implementasyon ng Debolusyon sa 2022. Para sa opisyal na pagbubukas, please focus your attention to the screen for the prayer and national anthem.
Our ever-loving Father, the core of every reason, the source of truth. You who made the earth and the heavens are the ultimate goal of every knowledge seekers, the infinite wisdom, the cause of all that is good. We are truly grateful for this opportunity to gather together as a community despite the challenges we face each day. Yet you remained and gave us strength to carry on the responsibilities of bearing intelligence and using them for better purposes. We now humbly ask you to join us in our endeavor to explore the wonders of life in the world for knowledge's sake, that in whatever we learn today, we become more grounded to you, who is truth, who is love. We pray that you bless our speakers, the fount of your infinite knowledge, that they can share something worthwhile despite the limited time we have. They can channel all they know and share to us the beauty and truth of living as your child. We pray that you guide our participants, the seekers of your boundless knowledge, that they may continue to persevere in the search and be deemed worthy to share what they learn from today's session. Sanctify us, O Lord, not because we are worthy of it, but because we believe in your love and mercy, that at the end of the day, we can take home something that's amazing and meaningful. This we ask and pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, tegas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuyan ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ang bangaw, ay ginatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di magdidinig. Luma ng araw ng walang pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang higaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Alright, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum everyone. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Naimbag amalem, marhay na hapon, maupay nga kulop, maayong hapon sa inyong tanan. Ako po si Riza May anayatin by mula sa MinCode Mindanao Coalition of Development NGO Networks. Kami po ay based dito sa Davao City, operating in Mindanao, and a proud member of Code NGO. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa inyong lahat for joining us this afternoon for a very meaningful discussion. Ang daming interested tungkol sa activity and topic natin ngayong hapon na ito. And so we're very glad that we are joined in this afternoon's activity by very prestigious and respected na mga resource persons. Maraming salamat for joining us. Thank you so much. This afternoon's webinar ay entitled Alamin ang Magbabago, Ambag Natin, Partisipasyon ng CSOs sa Proseso at Implementasyon ng Debolusyon sa 2022. This afternoon's session is actually part of a series of webinars. Pangatlong session na po ito. Ang unang session natin ay tungkol sa Mandanas-Garcia ruling, basic questions about it, paano nagkaroon ng ganitong ruling, and ano yung implications ng Supreme Court ruling na ito. Pangalawang session highlighted the Executive Order number 138. And that webinar was entitled Alamin ang Magbabago, Debolusyon at Transisyon sa Ilalim ng Mandanas Supreme Court Ruling. So that webinar, yung second webinar naman natin, tackled kung ano yung maging implications dito sa local government units, at ano yung mga programang maihahatid niya sa national at saka sa local level. And so this afternoon's session is highlighting naman saan dito sa processes na to magpa-participate ang civil society organizations. If you missed those two sessions, you can watch the replay on Facebook po. Nasa Facebook yun siya. Just click, nandiyan naka-flash on your screen, Open Gov PH on Facebook. Pwede nyo pong i-replay yung mga webinars na yon. And that also leads me to mention that we are also live on Facebook ngayon. So nakikita natin sa ngayon, we are on live sa Philippine Open Government Partnership website and Facebook, as well as Caucus of Development NGO Networks, Code NGO Facebook, and I guess as well as on its website, and then also sa DILG and sa Angat Lokal PH. So we are live. You can share the live po so that more friends, colleagues, office mates, citizens, Filipinos engaged will know about the Mandanas ruling, no, and the implications nito sa budget and sa programs ng ating local and national governments. All right. So at this point, we are highlighting ang civil society participation. Nais ko sanang batiin yung ating mga sumama this afternoon sa ating activity na ito. There are a total of 200 plus na nag-register sa ating session this afternoon. There are currently 77 registered na nasa Zoom ngayon. Actually, there are 74 who are already live joining us via Zoom, and then we have 255 from the NGO or the non-government sector. And then, of course, we are from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. There are 122 from Luzon, 42 in Visayas, 52 in Mindanao, and 4 that are probably from abroad. All right. And also we are live on Facebook dun sa 4 na pages na yon ng Facebook. So marami pang ibang kasama. So hello sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat for joining us this afternoon. Okay. So let's all dive into it, no? I'm sure you are all ready para simulan ang ating discussion. Marami tayong gustong matutunan tungkol sa Mandanas ruling na ito at ang implication nito sa ginagawa natin bilang civil society organizations, leaders, and officers. So with that, para simulan ang ating session this afternoon, I am always very pleased to call on the chairperson of the Philippine OGP Non-Government Steering Committee and also the chairperson of the Mindanao Coalition of Development NGO Networks, none other than former Congresswoman, Miss Andrea Maria Patricia M. Sarenas, to give us the welcome message. Ma'am Pat?
Okay. Maraming salamat, Bay. Partner ko talaga yan sa Mindanao. Good afternoon, everyone. Especially a special good afternoon to our two speakers from local government units, si Mayor Hani at si Mayor Roland, who will share with us a lot this afternoon. Tulad na sinabi ni Bay, ang title ng ating third of a series of webinars on the Debolusyon. Ang title ngayon hapon ay Ambag ko. My contribution. Parang naging buzzword yung ambag, no? We keep asking people, ano ba na ambag mo? So, ambag natin ang title ngayon. Kasi dito pag-uusapan natin kung paano tayo mag-participate as CSO sa proseso ng devolution. Okay? As in other workshops online, sabi ni Bay, we are coming together from all over the country at baka meron nga pa from abroad. At we seek to learn every time. We seek to clarify to ourselves how to commit, how to make ambag as civil society. Not that we don't know yet, but because for many of us, marami na tayong experience of working with local government. But this is a chance for us to clarify it. How do we implement, how do we participate in the various activities that will ensure the full implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas Garcia case? Okay. So like I said, we come to the room, to the Zoom room, to listen. Ang dami natin experiences, if not, maybe many of us, if not all of us, had advocated, practiced, and therefore helped strengthen local governance, making it more open and transparent and accountable. We always say that pinaglaban natin yung local development code. At nung pumasa yun, we always keep reminding everyone that there are actually 3 Ds under the pillars of the local government code. First, decentralization. The second D, devolution. And the last one, but not the least, democratization. Much has been done in ensuring decentralization and devolution, although with the Mandanas ruling, mas magiging clear pa yun. Yun, paano na de-devolve talaga ang powers from the national agencies. That's why we are here. Because the ruling mandates more forcefully the devolution process. But since the passage of the local government code, we have seen decentralization and especially devolution cannot be effective unless the third D is realized. Democratization, the power, the pillar that promotes the empowerment and meaningful participation in local governance. From the 60s to the 70s, Marcos years, ang hirap, miski mahirap, nakagawa tayo ng pagkilos para makapagtrabaho sa urban and rural poor areas. Locally mobilized funds most times, but those and grants from foreign donor agencies or local donor agencies. But with the change of government in 1986, NGOs found that there are now broader democratic space where they can expand their projects. Very tentatively, NGOs began to realize that they can in fact enter into more partnership agreements. informal as many of these agreements were with other sectors, and among these, the local government units. We got to know them better. Some NGO leaders crossed over, in fact, from the private sector to the public sector as LGU officials, from barangay to city, municipal to provincial level. Thus, a palpable change in the paradigms of local governance was felt as being more open and more development-oriented policies and programs were introduced. So, lagi natin sinasabi tayo sa CSOs when we work with our local government units, kailangan nyo kasi, no? Because just to quickly, we'd like to promote public consensus and local ownership for reforms of the projects. Meron dapat local ownership. We also want to give voice to our stakeholders, particularly the poor, the marginalized, the excluded. We want to strengthen and leverage impact para felt by all in the local government in the area. We want to bring innovative ideas and solutions. We want to provide professional expertise because there are professional expertise within the civil society. We also want to promote public sector transparency and accountability. In the Philippines, blessed tayo na may struktura at mga proseso that made participation of civil society possible. For example, we have the ILG have always partnered with us in ensuring that CSOs are able to participate meaningfully in LDCs, in local special bodies, and other LGU facilitated councils and committees. We have the Open Government Partnership Platform launched in the DBM, where government reps and non-government sector representatives work together to design and implement an OGP National Action Plan, as well as other sub-national OGP plans in select LGUs, like we have them present to this afternoon, South Cotabato and Eastern Samar. It's good to recall, I always say it's good to recall that the first award that the Philippine OGP won was in September 24 when the Philippines received the third place or one of the gold awards in the 2014 Open Government Awards with the team Citizen Engagement. That's why I want to recall it this afternoon in this forum because yun yung una natin pinamanalo. The award went to the BUB program. Noon, tawag sa kanya Grassroots Participatory Budget Process pero binalik din sa BUB. So, in-recognize ang mga initiatives for around the world for citizen engagement at nanalo tayo. So, today, as we talk among ourselves, we learned in this early project ng CSOs participating for budget processing, we learned that we can, in fact, work on equal footing with local government, government allies in the local government. So in behalf of the organizers and sponsors of this workshop, OGP and the OGP National Steering Committee with Code NGO as Secretariat of the Non-Government Steering Committee, I'd like to welcome you this afternoon's forum. It is our hope, as with other workshops that we attend online, now during the pandemic, that we will be able to learn and share and, virtually hold each other's hands for the next 3 years as we move forward to implementing more meaningfully the 3-year mandated implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas Garcia case. So maraming salamat. Welcome sa inyo. Mag-enjoy ho tayo this afternoon as we learn from each other. Maraming salamat. Thank you, bye.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Pat. Napakaganda yung opening, no? Reminding us na award-winning ang ating OGP at ang mga initiatives natin in the Philippines especially. And what more, no? ano pa ang potential, ang laki ng potential in the following years when the Mandanas ruling is implemented. Ang laki, ang rich ng potential na yon. We hope to be able to give service and also along the way, baka ma-award din tayo globally again, 'di ba? Ang Philippines. So, this afternoon, alam natin tulad ng nasabi ni Ma'am Pat, we have been learning about the Mandanas Garcia ruling. May mga na-attenan na tayo na mga webinars about it. May mga sessions tungkol dito. So this one, dahil nga malapit na yung implementation nito, this is going to be next year already. So definitely marami na tayong narinig at nalaman tungkol sa implementation ng ruling na to, sa pagtaas, and particularly no, ang pinaka-interested ng most of us ay yung sa pag-increase nung ERA or ngayon na tinatawag na National Tax Allotment or NTA ng mga LGUs at ang pag-devolve ng mga services at programs mula sa national papunta sa local government units. So hindi lingid sa ating kaalaman na hindi lamang sa national at local government agencies maaapektuhan ng ruling na to, no, kundi pati rin sa kung paano mag-participate ang mga NGOs, people's organizations, private sector, even ang mga civil society organizations, kung paano tayo makapag-engage with LGUs and national line agencies in the transition and eventually in the full implementation of this ruling. And makakamit lang natin yung tagumpay na inaasam natin sa transition kung tunay na maiintindihan natin, 'di ba? Maiintindihan natin along with the ordinary citizens, no, ang kanilang mahalagang responsibility sa pagtugon sa layunin ng Mandanas Garcia Supreme Court ruling at ang epekto nito sa pag-increase ng national tax allotment and the overall devolution even ng services. So yan po ang pangunahing reason kung bakit binuo itong series of learning sessions on fiscal transparency and the Mandanas Supreme Court rulings. Again, tulad nung na-mention ko kanina, this is the third webinar series and we will be focusing on civil society organizations' participation in the process of the transition and the implementation of the Mandanas ruling in 2022. So, this afternoon, we have invited, and we're very glad that they agreed to join us this afternoon, and nag-align ang universe that finally we are able to conduct this forum. Nag-meet ang mga schedules ng ating very busy and productive leaders, no, in civil society as well as in government. So this afternoon, we have invited officials from the CSO sector and LGU officials mula sa Polomolok, South Cotabato, and Artiches, Samar. We invited din yung mga kasama natin sa Committee on Devolution mula sa Department of Budget and Management ng DBM at ng Department of Interior and Local Government na DILG upang of course to help us answer kung may mga katanungan pa further on devolution. So, I'm sure you're all excited to learn more about our session this afternoon. Paano nga ba yung civil society participation sa transition and sa implementation nitong Mandanas ruling? Kung mataas na ang NTA, paano ang pagpaplano? Meron bang similar to the initiatives na bottom-up budgeting para kasama ang civil society? That would also be good, diba? So at this point, just before we go to the meat of our discussion, magkakaroon tayo ng poll para ma-assess lang, matingnan lang natin kung ano yung ating level of understanding, no? So, we will have a poll dito sa Zoom at least. So, dito sa Zoom, if a flash in a little while yung ating poll question and i-click nyo lang po yung sagot. For those who are watching us from Facebook, you can also type in your answer sa comments. Meron tayong mga kasama na nagbabasa ng inyong mga comments and they are feeding it back to us dito sa ating online Zoom webinar. All right, so the question is very easy. Malinaw at naiintindihan mo ba? O, diba? Very, very personal. Ayan, malinaw ba ang magiging bahagi na gagampanan ng non-government sectors, CSOs, academe, business, private sector unions, iba pa, upang maging maayos ang proseso at implementasyon ng debolusyon? So you just click either mag-choose lang po kayo dun sa tatlong choices dyan. Oo, malinaw sa akin at gagampanan ko ito para makatulong sa proseso. Or the second one, oo, naiintindihan, pero may mga agam-agam pa ako tungkol dito. And then third one, hindi pa. Pero handa akong malinawan tungkol dito. So, sa ngayon, there are 35% of us who are participating now, 40 plus. So please type in or just click kung ano po yung inyong answer to this question and we will immediately see the result. And then yung mga nasa kasama natin joining us via live sa Facebook, please type in your comment in the comment section kung ano po yung inyong sagot. Do you understand it? Oo, malinaw. Or oo, pero may agam-agam. Or hindi pa, pero willing intindihin pa. Alright, so hintayin natin. I hope we get 100% of those in Zoom, no? Sana yung nasa Zoom room natin. Currently, there are 84 of us in the Zoom room. I hope we can all click our answers. Hintayin po natin siguro sa research, 'di ba? Sabi nila, so sana kahit minimum 80%. So ngayon ay nasa 60% tayo. We hope that more of our Zoom participants will be able to join us sa pag-answer nitong poll question. Naku, parang hindi na gumagalaw. Baka sa internet lang. Okay, so let's just pause for a while. Siguro countdown ako ng 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. There you go. So, ang ating sagot in summary, tama ba ako? Can you share the results? Ayan. Or nakikita nyo rin on screen, diba? So, there's 43%, and this is the majority, ang sumagot na hindi pa malinaw ang magiging bahagi ng CSOs, pero we are willing to learn more about it. And then, kasunod nun, very close lang din naman, ay oo, naiintindihan na, pero may mga agam-agam pa. And later, siguro, we would know ano yung mga agam-agam na yon, and hopefully, in our session this afternoon, masagot yung mga yon. And then, there's a small percentage na oo, malinaw, and committing na tutulong doon sa proseso na yon. Alright, so maraming salamat sa inyong pag-join sa ating munting poll na ito. So now we have that idea, no, kung ilan ba sa atin, marami ba sa atin nakakaintindi. And apparently, there's really that need to understand and to further discuss and learn about this, and specifically how CSOs will be able to play its role in this implementation. Alright. So, hindi ko na patatagalin pa. Ang una po nating mapapakinggan, ang first session po natin ay galing sa isang environmental planner na may malalim na karanasan sa local government processes. Siya ay dating National Coordinator ng Philippine Partnership for the Development of Human
Recording
Resources
in
in Rural
progress.
Areas o PhilDRA at isang isa itong rural NGO network at ngayon ay faculty member ng De La Salle University. I-share niya sa ngayon ang mahalagang contribution ng CSOs sa proseso ng pamamahalang lokal, lalo na ngayon sa usapan ng devolution. Walang iba, I'm very pleased to introduce to you si Dr. Divina Luz Jean Lopez, the very beautiful and the very intelligent na ating kasama dito sa ating session this afternoon. Thank you so much, Ma'am Jean, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Bye. Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. Bye, and Ma'am Pat Serenas a while ago. We have been partners in the past, in so many ways, in a good sense. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. So I'll share screen, yung material that I prepared for you. Ayan na. Bye, I'll be the one to
Yes, Miss G.
present. Okay, sige. So magandang hapon po uli sa lahat, to my fellow presenters, our dear mayors from South Cotabato and Eastern Samar, yung panelists natin for this afternoon, si Director John Makaspak and Director Ana Bunagua, and also to the organizers, a pleasant, safe, and happy afternoon. So thanks God it's Friday pala ngayon. I was approached by my friends and fellow CSOs to share my thoughts on this topic, assessment of CSO participation in local governance in general. And as expected, I am just happy to be of help. So I organized my material into the following outline. So as usual, just a reiteration of the legal context, and then a short rationale of the importance and the imperatives for democratic participation, for democratic governance or citizen participation. And then the third part will be a brief assessment of participation in terms of the 4 dimensions. And then I'll also share a bit on the initiatives and results. And the last part would be on the next steps forward. Okay. Okay, so this slide is about giving credit to where it is due to the father of the local government code, the late Senator Nelly Pimentel, that made possible the passage of the 1991 code as a comprehensive law, serving as Bible even to most of LGUs. Parang Biblia nilang local government code. At the core of the 1991 code is a devolution of basic service delivery to each and every LGU. It contains provisions that expanded and strengthened various avenues for participation in local governance. Just to compare the 1991 code with its predecessor, yung 1983 local government code, yung isang malaking pagkakaiba niya is that the 1983 code only identified one local special body. But in the 1991 version, nadagdagan ng 3 pa. And therefore, we have 4 local special bodies. We're talking about the 4, Local Development Council, the School Board, the Health Board, and the Local Peace and Order Council. And moreover, mandatory membership in these special bodies extends to representatives from NGOs and other civil society groups in the area. Okay. let me share with you no, this chart. No, and actually, I borrowed this, no, I adapted this no, from paper by World Bank in 2004. Pinresent ito sa isang international conference in Washington, D.C. And the topic kasi ng conference na yun was about local governance and local development. So, yeah, this chart somehow provides the theoretical basis no, for the linkages between governance and development. No? Okay, now, merong tatlong ano dito. Gusto kong ipakita dito yung tatlong linkages no, to explain this chart. The first linkage runs from here, no, from local governance no, to fiscal decentralization and hence provision of services, no, leading to local development. No? So that's the first run, no? That's the first linkage. Okay. The second linkage is a direct one, no, from here to here, na kung saan hina-highlight niya no, yung value of democratic participation or social inclusion as a development in itself. Diba? So parang when we say social inclusion and democratic participation, it is considered as a standalone development outcome. No? And the third link, ito yung sa baba, no? From local development to local governance. So, pabalik naman siya. No? So it is a feedback link no? From local development to local governance. No? This third link, which is a feedback loop, suggests no, that the standards of governance, no, ito may itself be the result no, of the development and the growth process. What does it mean? No? It is possible no, that the quality of governance here is precisely because of the level of development here, which is low. No? For example, in an area na merong low quality of governance, maybe because yung low level of educational attainment of the people and the overall poverty of the constituents, no? Yung low level of development, no? Na ano tawag to, no, the people might have expected less, no, and even just accepted no, the mediocre performance no, from their government officials. Paano naman yung dito sa ilalim, no, yung boxes ni ito? Under certain governance conditions, no, where participatory, transparent, and accountable governance and processes are not met, fiscal decisions are found to be more likely to promote narrow vested interests than the general welfare. No? Hence, unless democratic participation in local fiscal processes is assured, the decentralized provision no, of services is unlikely to be efficient, no? Unlikely to be efficient or equitable. Without the efficiency or equity gains, local development cannot be realized, other things being constant. No? So nakikita natin no, yung imperatives no, for democratic participation, for social inclusion, in terms of making possible no, efficient and equitable provision of services, leading toward local development, and that local development would also influence no, the kind of governance no, an area would have. Okay, so I hope that helps. In this slide, in order to keep my presentation simple, kasi ang aking topic ay assessing no, CSO participation, allow me to use no, yung 4 Ps. Medyo hindi ito kapareho ng Pantawid Pamilya Program of the DSWD. I just want to refer to the 4 dimensions in terms of the people, policy, platform or processes and products no, as the areas no, na pwedeng tingnan in terms of assessing CSO participation. No? So, for people, this refers no, to the CSOs no, that are engaged or engaging in governance. For policy, syempre alam natin, no, these are issuances no, that promote substantive implementation of the codal mandates, especially those referring to the participation of civil society organizations. Yung platform and processes, this refer to the structures, no, to the spaces, no, mechanisms no, for citizens engagement, including, of course, no, the processes, no, the participatory processes, no, that are also defined alongside no, yung structure na yon. And lastly, yung products, I refer them to significant outputs and outcomes of citizen engagement. Just to clarify, Philippines shared with me no, the materials no, that they have. So I tried to incorporate them no, in my presentation ngayon. Okay, so let me take first the first P, people. Okay, the parameters, wala akong magamit na term. Yung parameters, how do we look at people no, as an important dimension when we assess participation of CSOs? No? So, when we look at CSOs no, or people, tinitingnan dito yung organization. No? So, okay, no? I'm using the term here by Zarina, no, yung thickness, but for me as a planner, siguro ano to, density, no? Yung bilang, yung dami ng bilang ng mga CSOs no, that are existing in a given municipality, city, or province. No? So, yung thickness, also yung diversity, no? Pagkakaiba-iba, no? Diversity ng mga groups no, that are present, the levels of organization nila. No? So, may primary level, secondary, and tertiary. Yung primary, this would be the mga people's organizations, ng mga basic cooperatives, and mga NGOs no, that are really operating at the barangay or municipal level, directly in contact no, with the beneficiaries no, or the areas. Yan. Yung secondary level would be NGOs na network na yung kanilang katangian. No? So for example, sabi ni Bay, I was working with Fildra, and Fildra is a network of NGOs that are involved no, in promoting rural development and advancing agrarian reform. No? So that's a network. Ngayon, may mga tertiary level naman like Code NGO. So Code NGO is a network of networks. No? Mga members nito ay mga networks in the likes of, again, Fildra, Philsa, PDSP, and also regional networks. No? So tertiary type of level organization. Another parameter na tinitingnan no, sa people or CSOs would be yung representation or representativeness. No? So, ang tanong dito ay, do they represent no, the sectors or federations maybe or coalitions of CSOs no, in the area? No? Okay. Yung isang parameter na tinitingnan din no, yung organizational and technical capacity. When we say organizational capacity, ito yung whether the organizations or CSOs adhere to the principles of mga organizational management, no? Yun. And the technical capacities naman, ito yung intricacies na no, of yung knowledge and skills nila in terms of planning, investments programming, no? Yung proseso ng PFM, and budget advocacy, legislative advocacy, no? And most importantly, no, they're having the resources to engage. Okay, so what's my general parang assessment in terms of the gaps? Key assessment points, no? Of course, they are not united, no? And hence, wala masyadong pagkakaisa, no, yung consensus among CSOs to engage as a collective. Maybe as individual NGO, no, as individual people's organization. No? And then in terms of the presence across the municipalities and cities is generally uneven. Marami sa kanila nagko-converge no, in urban centers. No? And then generally, I mentioned already, no, the CSOs represent only their immediate organization. And then, in not a few areas, CSOs still complain of the selection of representatives no, that did not follow the guidelines no, na in-issue ng DILG, no, particularly yung 2019 issuance ito, number 72, no, that provided the how-to no, in terms of the accreditation and selection and the reconstitution of the local special bodies. Yun. So we still get feedback no, along that line. Okay. I mentioned the lack of capacity in engaging no, in the intricacies of governance processes. No? So planning, investment programming, etc. And then they're not having enough or even lack no, of resources. that continues to constrain them from actively claiming the spaces to engage government. Okay. I just want to mention pala no, that the DILG kasi recently issued an MC number 54 no, that promoted no, the formation of local people's council, no, and that just started, I think, no, and to date the number is that konti pa lang, no, less than 50 municipalities have reported to have their local people's council organized. Okay. Now let me go to the second P, no, policy. So policies, they are important because they create an enabling environment to nurture and sustain democratic governance by providing regular space. The keyword here is regular, no, regular space, venue, platforms for participation. And then sa policies rin, no, nangyayari no, yung pag-create ng wider space no, for participation, no, promoting inclusiveness, diversity, and accessibility. And also, pag-provide ng fiscal and technical support no, for people participation. So, what are my key assessment points here in terms of the gaps? No? The requirements for accreditation are still considered by many CSOs as stringent, hence discouraging them to apply and limiting participation. There's also that weak oversight in policy implementation, resulting to the uneven implementation of policies across LGUs. I know, for example, no, that yung MC that I mentioned about yung to guide no, the selection of CSOs, of representatives, no? Meron yan part no na i-create yung monitoring and reporting committees no, or what we call the MRCs no, at the national, regional, and provincial levels, composed of the DILG, LGU League, and CSO representatives, no? Para sila yung in charge dun sa pag-oversee ng implementation talaga no, ng MC na yan, no? But hindi yon nangyari, no? I mean, that's always no, the weak connection. And then in terms of incentives, no, CSO representatives invest their time, their talent, and energy attending meetings called for, but are not necessarily compensated. So it's a recurring feedback no, from CSO representatives. Okay, now let me go to the last P, the fourth P, no, which is yung, third P, which are yung platform and processes. No? So, okay, so in terms of the parameters, kailangan yon, di ba, consistent with the policy, kung paano yon nabuo yung mga membership, no? Yan, dapat functional and may systems in place so that establish no, the predictability and sustainability no, of these mechanisms. For example, in crafting, for example, of the executive budget, di ba, yearly yon, no? It has to include on a regular basis no, yung pagsagawa no, ng consultative process involving not only the LDC and bank, no? Sa dulo na yon but also the sectoral committees no, under the LDC. No? May mga ganong consultations dapat. No? Yun, para sa ganon, mabuo no, yung content no, ng AIP. So what are the gaps? No? Despite those policy issuances, observations no, still point to the political interference occurring, no? Getting in the way in the selection of the representatives in many areas. No? This non-observance of appropriate procedures and processes may have also led to the perceived biased accreditation of CSOs, no? And to what we call no, the elite capture. And non-functional LSBs and sectoral committees are often raised no, as a concern by many CSOs. And also, kasama na doon yung lack of transparency, no? Yan. Okay. Now, for the last P, yung products. Citizens participate, diba? We participated only for participation's sake, no? But also, yung participation ng CSOs should result to clear outputs or outcomes. No? This means that by having active, capable, and empowered CSOs, where they get not only to raise their voice, no, to have their voice, no, but also to be able to cast their votes, no. So dapat magkasama yan, voice and vote, right? And integral in this process is they're having a clear set of development agenda and the capacity to mainstream that agenda into the planning and budgeting and related PFM processes, no, in the plans, projects, and programs, no, yan, including policies. Okay, so what are the gaps noted? There is an absence of measures of performance, no, parang standard set of indicators to gauge the level and quality of people participation in various bodies, both no in mga code mandated and in other non-code, no, but what we call mga code inspired special bodies. So wala pa tayong mga ganon, ano, mga metrics. And without those standard measures of performance, it would be hard to expect regular assessments to discern the impact of citizen engagement in governance. Yeah, I again borrowed this slide, no, from Assistant Director June Marali of kasama po ni Director Ana. He presented this before, no? I think it was during your webinar, no, in September also this year. So just to reiterate, no, that sa process, no, for example, ng devolution transition planning, it's akin, no, to the regular planning process. So wherein may ganito kang proseso, no, ng PFM, no, you prepare the plan and then mobilize, no, the needed resources, and then preparation of the budget required, no, annually, and then the execution of the budget, no, or implementation. So definitely merong ample spaces, no, for participation of CSOs here, no, in the mandated local planning bodies, so which are the local development councils, right? And within the LDC, of course, yung mga sectoral committees and functional committees, na kung saan kahit hindi ka accredited na NGO or PO, you can really be part, no, of those sectoral committees as members, no, consistent no, with your advocacy, no, with your yung mga thematic na mga agenda na mga CSOs. And then of course, sa budget execution part, no, some CSOs can pretty well engage government, no, as monitors. No? And a number of them, natatapos sila as project implementers, but also following, no, the tamang procurement process. No? And at all times, no, CSOs can be relied on, no, as good governance advocates. Okay, so I'd like to share with you, no, yung recent initiatives and results. And this came primarily, no, from the ALG reports. No? And yun naman they were able to carry out, no, in partnership, no, with major CSO networks and organizations. Major strides have been made, no, towards strengthening and improving the functionality of mandated mechanisms. So for example, yeah, quite a number, no, of more recent issuances, no, that emanated, no, from the ALG. Just to give a few examples, in 2017, may MC, no, number 53, that provided the LDC functionality as one of the criteria na ginamit, no, to qualify, no, for the SGLG awards, no, doon sa assessment ng mga LGUs. So that's one. Another, also a year later, no, the DILG-MC number 61 in 2018 incorporated compliance of the LGU, no, with the LDC functionality assessment in the release of the LGSF assistance, no, to municipalities funds. No? So in a way, nilink siya doon sa LGSF, and that served, no, as an incentive, no, for LGUs, no, to be compliant, no, with that call, no, for higher level of LDC functionality. And in 2019, so election time ito, every election year, the LG would issue, no, an MC that would guide, no, the process of accreditation and selection of CSO reps, as well as the reconstitution of the various LSBs. So dito, I would like to mention that in 2019, yung ambag dito, using the term ambag, no, yung naging ambag dito for that year, no, in terms of yung enhancement is that nagiging explicit no yung line doon sa MC na yon that strongly encourage local government to increase the number of CSO members in the LDCs up to 50%. No? Yung formulation lang kasi no, doon sa original no, na IRR ng local government code, yung composition, no, yung membership ng CSO is at least 25%. So, this time around, no, in this issuance of the DLG, rather than sticking no, to that original formulation, ginawa nilang parang kahit enjoining pa rin, no, but they made that explicit na better to increase the membership of the CSOs up to 50%. Okay, and then also, and this is more recent one, no? Number 54 in 2021, the MC enjoining the LGUs to establish no, their respective CSO desks, no, and to institutionalize the local people's council, no. The creation of the CSO desks and promotion of the local people's councils, no, are policy level recognition of the important role that CSO networks perform in building the constituency of CSOs actively engaging in governance, and also recognition of the invaluable support that CSO desks no, can potentially extend to CSOs wanting to participate in governance. Okay, so I'd like to also just share no, parang pieces of good news baga, no, na activities were also conducted by the DLG, mainly with support no, from the SLGP, and this suggests a level of seriousness no, in tracking performance in terms of the implementation of the democratization provisions of the code, and also in undertaking capacity development interventions in response to the result of those assessments. So, ito yung mga ginawa no, ng DLG no, through the SLGP, no, yung functionality assessment of the LDCs. They held CSO conferences in all LGUs. They also established for the first time yung baseline data on CSO accreditation and membership in local special bodies. And yung pagsagawa no, ng capacity development program for CSOs that are sitting in the local special bodies. Okay, so still to add detail no, in terms of the initial results no, from those policy initiatives. Before 2017, just to highlight no, the changes, many LDCs no, were not able to meet no, with the required minimum requirement of CSO composition, kahit yung 25% no, before 2017. Diba? Ang karamihan dyan na sagot ng LGU ay, wala masyadong CSO sa lugar namin. We can hardly fill in no, the 25% of the total you know, membership no, ng LDC. In 2017, yung CSO, yung LGUs so that were able to satisfy no, yung ganong requirement, increased to around 80%. And again, in 2018, nadagdagan ba to around 95%. No? And then, in 2020, ito yung nailabas na no, yung MC nila that you know, encourages LGU no, to increase no, the membership of CSOs up to 50%. No? So in 2020, out of the total 1,452 LDCs, no, 71% of that number have more than 25% na CSO ang members. Diba? Laki, no? And then, out of that same number, 41% have at least no, 30% CSOs. No? And 12%, karamihan dyan yung mga cities, ano, have 50% or more CSOs. No? And I think that's the more ideal one. I just like to highlight here that malaking tulong nga yung policy, no? Kasi nga it created a very enabling environment. No? But I think what was more instrumental was the efforts that were also undertaken by the CSOs, both at the national and local levels, together with the field officers of the DLG, then of course, no, yung support ng local government, no, to really respond positively no, to those policy favorable policy issuances no, by the DLG. Diba? So, hindi pwedeng policy lang talaga. Okay. So, ito pa rin mga initial results, no, na at least 398 LGUs were able to set up no, their CSO desks. And related to the CapDev intervention, ginawang more systematic no, ng DLG by developing CapDev modules no, for the CSO members in the LSBs. No, and nasa pilot stage siya ngayon no, in 8 regions. No? And it's also being noted here no, that through the SLGP, they're also initiating this one no, with support from the UNDP, no, yung participatory governance metrics, a tool, no, pisa na siya no, to assess substantiveness or quality of participation in governance. Yon, in partnership with the UNDP, no? Yon. Okay. So, yung next steps forward, no, what now? So what remains to be done? Again, inorganize ko yung recommendations according to the 4 Ps to be consistent. No? Okay, in terms of the first P, yung people, building a constituency of citizens who are willing to commit and invest their time in participating in governance activities, dapat padayon lang. No? Padayon lang. We look forward to more CSOs under more even geographic spread. No? Citizens should find spaces to engage the barangay-based institutions because participating at the barangay level would be where CSOs can make the most difference. No? And we also look forward to more capacitated CSOs, both in terms of the soft skills of consensus building, negotiation, conflict management, diba? Magagaling tayo dyan eh, no? As well as in acquiring hard skills, competence no, in data analysis no, for sectoral planning, and transforming their advocacy agenda into more solution-oriented and solution-seeking formulation no, of their agenda. There is no limit to the spaces that can be accorded the CSOs to engage. No? This should also be accompanied by opportunities for learning new methodologies to also make participation efficient and with impact. No? Participatory tools that CSOs are more adept at, diba? Should complement the more technically crafted planning and PFM tools. No? For example, when you do, for example, no, your comprehensive plan, the CDP and the CLUP of the LGUs, diba? Kailangan matutunan din ng LGU no, yung mga participatory situational analysis and assessments nila, paano yan i-translate doon sa local development indicator system, and the strategic version ito yung rapids, and also yung mga VRGA, no, yung vision reality gap analysis, and also yung mga problem solution finding matrices, di ba? So those are the technically crafted methodologies. So what I'm saying is that ma-complement yun no, ng what LGUs are already familiar with no, ng mga participatory tools, no? So that the process of planning can really be, ano yun, magkaroon talaga siya ng convergence no, in terms of, you know, yung plan outputs in terms of the CDP, the CLUP, and then the DTPs. Yeah. Okay. For the second P, what are the next steps forward? No? Experience tells us no, that LGUs that demonstrated best practices in democratic governance are those that have complemented favorable national policies no, by issuing parallel local resolutions or ordinances. No? Easily, I can think of Naga City, Pasig City, and Valenzuela City. No? They issue parallel local policies, no, resolutions or ordinances in order to reinforce no, a national policy for implementation at the local level. And then strengthen oversight and enforcement mechanisms at all levels. Existing development literature reiterated no, this one, the need to strengthen enforcement mechanisms no, for enabling policies issued on decentralization and democratic governance. And then policy that will provide funding for CSOs that would allow them to participate not only in short-term specific PFM process, but also what would enable them to build their organizational capacities to engage in a longer term and in a more sustainable basis. So yun ang dapat na i-aim, no? Yung funding participation on a longer and more sustainable basis. In terms of the third P again, no, yung next steps, recommendations, so yung platforms and processes. We are not wanting of successful stories of participatory processes and platforms. There is a need to document them as knowledge products that can be shared. What needs to be featured, however, ay how CSOs engage creatively and successfully in various conditions and under a given political and governance context. You know, there's this paper na from a colleague also, na CSO, Miss Joy Aceron. She mentioned the importance of vertical integration as a strategic approach to exacting accountability, involving a wide array of actions by a diverse set of actors, right? This needs to be unpacked and concretized as applicable, or required in a given advocacy agenda of CSOs. When we want to make an impact in terms of a certain development issue, hindi pwede kasing manatili ka yung galaw natin sa munisipyo lang or sa syudad lang, right? You really need that level of integration in terms of conducting your work, your advocacy work, so vertical and horizontal integration. And then for the last P, for the products, on the short term, we look forward to CSO agenda, or minsan tinatawag na People's Development Agenda, being successfully embedded in various policies, programs, and projects. Having a clear set of performance measures sa pangalawa, focusing on the quality of participation. SLGP people would term that yung from form to substance, yun na yung magiging level ng monitoring and assessment, from transactional, representative, partnership, collaborative levels. Ito naman yung language that we are using. I'm now with Change Project of USAID, so we are also promoting the concept of democratization continuum. So, those initiatives should just be pursued toward developing yung performance measures to better gauge the level of participation in terms of quality. In the long term, the institutionalization of participation in the PFM process, as well as the sustained presence and capacity of CSOs to engage with tangible results are most desired as development outcomes in themselves. And policies to make this possible are in order. So, yon, institutionalization and application of participatory approaches in public finance management and policies that nurture participation on a longer term for development outcomes. Okay, I want to end my presentation by reiterating this basic definition of participatory governance, lest we forget that one has to see the equation of governance and government as mutually reinforcing, where civil society is broadly defined and government interact and collaborate in crafting policies, in setting directions, and in implementing programs and projects as partners. And with that, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Sana nakatulong.
Thank you, Ma'am Jing. Definitely nakatulong po. Ang daming realizations natin dun sa presentation ni Miss Jing on assessment of CSO participation in local government in local governance processes. Ang ganda ng framing ng 4 Ps, people, policy, platforms, and products. And then yung and then ending it, I also like yung ending na recommendations on how we can improve in those 4 aspects. So that was great, Ma'am Jing. I'm sure marami po kayong gustong itanong, maraming insights as well, maraming realizations, maraming gustong i-share as per your experience. So at this point po, pwede nyo pong i-type in po yan sa comments ninyo, sa comment section, sa chat box po dito sa Zoom. And then for those who are watching us via Facebook, pwede nyo pong i-type in yan sa comment section sa Facebook. So at this point, magpo-proceed po tayo sa ating second speaker. And this time around, kung si Ma'am Jing ay coming from the civil society organization, ang ating susunod na speaker will be coming from the local government unit. So this second session is about sharing of local government experience on decentralization and devolution and ways forward to improve public service delivery. Yung kasama natin this afternoon ay magbabahagi ng kanilang karanasan sa local government, no? Particularly kung paano ine-embody or ine-exercise ang meaningful participation ng CSO, which results in the maayos at effective na services para sa citizens nila. Ano-ano ang mga naging hamon, ano yung mga challenges, ano yung mga responses din nila and actions taken para i-strengthen ang CSO participation sa kanilang munisipyo. And supposedly we have two speakers who will share about how their local government encourages meaningful participation of civil society organizations. But unfortunately, si Mayor Evardone po of Samar particularly Artiche of Samar, has been disconnected sa ating Zoom room ngayon dahil sa internet connection. So sayang, no? Definitely there's a lot of room for improvement sa ating internet connectivity, but so we regret to inform you that Mayor Evardone will not be able to join. But rest assured, we will still have a very meaningful discussion. At this point, ang ating tatawagin ay ang current mayor, and I'm very proud to introduce her as well dahil I come from its neighboring municipality. Siya ay mayor sa ikatatlong termino. And this is nakaka-proud as well. Sila ang pinakamayamang munisipyo sa Mindanao, ang munisipyo ng Pulomolok, South Cotabato. Ikinagagalak ko, I'm so pleased to introduce to you the Honorable Mayor of Pulomolok, South Cotabato, Mayor Honey Lumayag Mati. Magandang hapon, Mayor Honey. Taga-tupi po ako.
Good afternoon, Bai. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. Tama, magkasunod lang tayo ng town, no? Pulomolok, Jensen, Pulomolok, and then Tupi. Thank you for having me. So, good afternoon to everyone, to my fellow presenters, our panelists, the organizers, and of course our moderator, si Bai Raiza. So my topic for this afternoon is meaningful CSO participation towards improved public service. I'd like to share to you the Municipality of Pulomolok's experience. Next slide, please. So I'll just give you a brief background of the LGU. The municipality of Pulomolok is a first-class agro-industrial municipality, and it's one of the largest municipalities in Mindanao. Tama yung sabi ni Bai na we are one of the richest in Mindanao, if not the richest. We have a population of about 172,605 based on the 2020 census. And our population is comprised of settlers from other parts of the Philippines, indigenous peoples, and Muslim communities. No? Here in Pulomolok, we have one of our largest industries, Dole Philippines. It's located here. And because of Dole Philippines, marami ring mga kooperatiba na nagtukod ng kanilang mga dito sa munisipyo namin. Next slide, please. I'd like to identify the important roles of CSOs in the private sector. Ang CSOs kasi ay pwede talagang maging kapartner sa policy making, no? dahil nagmumula sila sa grassroots, nalalaman nila kung anong mga pangangailangan, at dahil ang gobyerno nagbibigay ng tulong sa ating mga kababayan, malaki ang mayambag nila in terms of policy making. No? Dahil alam rin natin na limitado ang resources ng gobyerno, magiging ka-partner din natin sila sa pagbibigay ng technical assistance. In the municipality of Pulumulok, we try very much na magkaroon kami ng holistic approach in governance dahil kailangan na matugunan lahat ng pangangailangan ng klase-klaseng mga sektor at iba't ibang sektor. And dahil kapartner mo rin ang mga CSOs, ma-increase din yung accountability and transparency sa parte ng LGU para masigurado kung ano ang resources ay nagagamit ng tama at nabibigay din sa mga nangangailangan talaga. Next slide, please. So in policy making, our LGU includes CSOs and private sectors. No? Most of our local bodies, meron talaga kaming mga kapartner at involved na mga CSO, not just on paper, pero yung seryosohan na kasali sila sa pagpaplano, pag-i-implement ng mga programa. So creation of policies to ensure the success of any service or program. Inclusion of these private organizations are most often mandated by law. And as LCE, I remain committed to really engage, listen, and proactively collaborate with them. And these CSOs and private organizations offer wider perspectives on local issues, producing the best policy direction. Next slide, please. Ito ay mga listahan ng mga local bodies namin na may nakasali ang private sector. No? For instance, in sensitive areas as health and peace and order, it is very important to start with the right policies as there are many factors that need to be studied, considered, and evaluated. Cultural and religious sensitivity, for instance, have been identified as stumbling blocks in many peace efforts. But if the right policy is employed, the program will most likely succeed. And the LGU recognizes the importance of policy setting and accordingly recognizes the important roles of CSOs that CSOs play in policy making. As such, I, being an LCE, always ensures the inclusion of CSOs and the private sector in any of its policy making body. While the inclusion of these CSOs or the private sector in many local bodies or committees are often mandated or recommended by law or any pertinent issuances, it is important and always meaningful if the LCE shall really put these local bodies into action. The experience of the LGU is to really involve the CSOs and proactively collaborate with them and not let the inclusion of CSOs in local bodies or committees remain on paper lang. So madalas kasi ang nangyayari dahil kailangan ito na isali sila sa batas, may mga mandate na may mga na kailangan i-include yung mga CSO. Madalas kasi ang nangyayari para mas mapabilis, hindi na sila talaga nakaka-participate. But here in our municipality, we make sure that kapartner talaga namin sila from the very beginning until ma-implement yung programa. Nang sa ganun, ay masigurado na kung ano talaga yung mga pangangailangan sa baba ay maibigay din namin. May boses din sila talaga. So an example of this is Task Force Kalusugan, which you will see on the next slide. Task Force Kalusugan of the LGU is a multi-stakeholder body that primarily addresses health and safety issues. It is composed of a lead NGO partner, Mahintana Foundation Incorporated, and the public and private health professionals from the different health institutions in the locality. This task force became one of the most active task forces of the LGU and became one of the main sources of the health policies of the municipality. It started from addressing immediate health issues and later evolved into a planning body and much later into advocacies for the institutionalization of health policies through local ordinances. May time na dito sa Pulumulok nagka-problema kami dahil tumaas ang cases namin sa TB and na pinpoint namin na most of the workers na hired by the cooperatives ang nagkakasakit. At dahil galing sa kooperatiba, mga tao ng mga kooperatiba, talagang sinali namin yung mga HEPOs nila or mga health personnel nila nang sa ganun masigurado na yung may mga sakit ay mapapunta talaga sa health centers dahil covered naman ito ng PhilHealth. So dapat masiguradong gumaling sila matapos ang kanilang treatment at makabalik sa trabaho. No? So lately, the LGU partners partnered with the same NGO, Mahintana, and launched the Pro-Peace program. Again, it is a collaboration of the different stakeholders that intends to set the policy directions, measures, and interventions to address gaps and issues on peace and order concerns, particularly on extremism. From the start, it is crucial to identify the right policy to undertake, and the CSOs and other private stakeholders became instrumental to identify the right interventions to undertake. So that would be the next slide. So yan yung aming kapartner, ang Mahintana. Next slide, please. In resource sharing naman and technical assistance, this is where I discussed to you the contribution of the CSOs, wherein yung mga resources and expertise nila ay nag-augment sa limitadong resources ng gobyerno. I mean, as local government, we must admit na may mga kakulangan din tayo at meron tayong mga bagay na hindi tayo talagang hindi natin gamay. Meron mga taong pwede rin makatulong sa atin. At dahil dito, kailangan din natin silang isali dahil meron din silang pwedeng itulong at ituro sa atin. No? The resources of the LGU is limited vis-a-vis the services and functions expected from it. So some tasks even require technical assistance, knowledge that the LGU do not possess. And by engaging CSOs and the private partners, it is a strategy to maximize the use of resources. Example, nung nagkaroon tayo ng pandemya, nung nabalitaan namin na ang dumating na mga bakuna sa national government ay karamihan Pfizer, and alam naman natin na ang handling and storage ng Pfizer very sensitive, kailangan may ultra low freezers, at nabalitaan din namin na ang Dole Philippines ay willing na bumili ng 80 million worth of Moderna vaccines for all their 20,000 employees. Ang sinabi namin, dahil hindi naman sila agad mabibigyan ng bakuna dahil kailangan munang isatisfy yung order ng national government natin, why don't they donate the ultra-low freezer, which only costs 1 million, and I, dito as local chief executive, will make sure of the allocation per Pulumulok. And that's what happened. And so far, so nakatipid ang munisipyo, hindi na kinailangan na bumili ng isang ultra-low freezer na amounting to 1 million higit. Ang nangyari ay naparating namin dito ang Pfizer vaccine na nabakunahan namin ang karamihan ng aming mga kababayan. And I'm very happy to report to everybody na as of this period, almost 70% na ang nababakunahan namin dito sa Pulumulok na nakatanggap na ng first dose, at ang nakatanggap ng second dose nasa about 60% na. So at the rate we are going, at kung consistent lang ito, tuloy-tuloy ang dating ng bakuna, I am very optimistic na hopefully by end of December, end of this year, ay ma-achieve na namin yung 70% herd immunity namin na kailangan namin bakunahan about 116,000 of our population. Next slide, please. Most evident examples include the partnership, as I've mentioned, and we have another partner in Chinese Chamber of Commerce na dahil dito sa Pulumulok marami pa kaming mga eskwelahan, barangay na elementary schools lang ang meron, wala pang high school. But I'm happy to share with everybody that in the past 9 years, tatlong termino ko, I was able to convert 12 elementary schools into integrated school. But alam naman natin na medyo matagal ang pag-trickle down ng pondo galing sa national at hindi agad-agad na nakapagpatayo ng mga additional classrooms. So naging kapartner namin ang Chinese Chamber of Commerce, gamit din ang Special Education Fund namin na madagdagan yung mga classrooms doon sa mga integrated schools para makapag-open sila ng mga susunod na and higher levels. At napakalaking tulong nito. Another partner was Sensory Pacific Group for our feeding program. Before the pandemic, we started 2 years ago, we started feeding not just those who are wasted or severely wasted, yung mga malnourished na mga kabataan, but the entire population of several schools nang sa ganun ma-ensure namin na mababa ang dropout. At alam naman natin, marami-rami ang mga estudyante, hindi kakayanin na gastusan o pondohan ng munisipyo lahat lahat. So nung pumasok ang Century Pacific Group, napakalaking tulong dahil everyday nakapagpakain kami ng mga kabataan namin. About 15,000 of our students sa elementary. No? So ang munisipyo ng Pulumulok ang gumawa ng mga central kitchens. So we have 3 as of the moment at ang bigas kami ang nagpo-procure, ang ulam nanggagaling sa Century Pacific Group. So on technical assistance naman, maraming mga capacity building for Menres. Ito yung mga bantay gubat namin dahil kailangan namin, ang Pulumulok kasi is landlocked and we are sitting on the foothills of Mount Matutum. So kailangan din na tuloy-tuloy ang aming reforestation programs. And we are very grateful for Mahintana Foundation and Dole Philippines in assisting us in these programs. Next slide, please. So ito yung nangyari nung COVID-19. We were able to form a group. It's called COVID-19 Task Force Sinabang, kung saan lahat ho ng mga ayuda para sa mga kababayan namin ay naging kapartner ho namin ang Mahintana. Nang sa ganon, ang procurement, ang distribution, even packing, distribution, ay nasigurado ho namin na makarating sa tao. Ang logistics side namin, ang Dole Philippines, nagpahiram ng kanilang gym. With so much resources being mobilized, especially in emergency situations, the presence of CSOs and private sectors in policy making, planning, and delivery of interventions heightens accountability and transparency. CSOs and private sectors have their own media platforms, and these contribute to information dissemination and consequently enhance transparency. With so much stakeholders involved, or more parties are involved, extra-legal arrangements and corruption are minimized. And also, participation of these CSOs in the private sector enhances the feedback mechanism, as these CSOs will have their own audit and accomplishment reports. So, next slide, please. Video na ata ang susunod.
I may not be a frontliner, but this is the least that I can do to help the citizens of Pulumulok.
So, yun po yung naging karanasan namin dito sa bayan ng Pulumulok during nung kasagsagan po ng COVID, no. Napakahirap dahil marami ho ang nasa bahay lang, marami ang tumigil sa pagtatrabaho, and we had to make sure that about 60,000 families po ang kinailangan namin na matulungan. So 5 beses ho kami nagbigay ng ayuda dito sa bayan namin. Lampas 25, almost 30 kilos po per family ang naibigay namin. Kami rin po ang isa sa mga pinakauna sa Rion 12 na nakapagpatayo ng isolation facility na hindi po gamit yung mga lumang mga eskwelahan or mga eskwelahan. Talagang hospital setup po ang nangyari, even though it's an 18-room isolation facility, and nakagastos ho ang munisipyo ng about 9 million. Pero I'm happy to note po na kung makabayad po ang PhilHealth sa amin, nabawi na ho namin yung investment na yon, no? So isa hong patunay na kapag marami po ang nagtutulong-tulungan, marami po tayong pwedeng gawin, at kahit ano pa hong programa ang isusulong natin, talaga hong magsasucceed ito, no? So dito ho sa bayan namin, we try to approach our problems or address po yung mga problema namin through this holistic approach, no? Na engaging CSOs and the private sector in public service is a tool for inclusive growth and progress. Collaboration among stakeholders where every sector as much as possible is represented is one of the best features of good governance. It enables the LGU to have all different perspectives and consequently foster inclusive growth for all. So if you make sure that different sectors, because ang demographics po ng Pulumulok, klase-klase talaga dahil marami ho kaming migrants because of job opportunities, klase-klase din po ang ugali, iba't iba ang pinanggalingan. Kaya kung mas marami ho mga representante na makakasali sa aming mga local bodies, mas marami pong boses ang pwede nating pakinggan, mas marami po tayong pwedeng gawin para sa kanila. Next slide, please. So an example of this holistic approach is for the zoning and land use namin, which is one of the most prevalent issues for LGUs. There is always the need to balance private wants on one end and public interest on the other. So hence, engaging different private sectors in local zoning bodies enables the LGU to have a wider and truthful perspectives of things. Hence, the LGU ensures the participation of educational institutions, homeowners associations, NGOs, cooperatives, business organizations, and the local government in local bodies such as the LZBA or Local Zoning Board, and the LZRC. Accordingly, this enables the LGU to choose the best possible options and decide fairly whether to grant or not to grant land use variance or exception. No? Holistic approach is also vital in peace and order efforts. The inclusion of all stakeholders, such as the IPs, Muslim communities, their elders, and religious institutions, the various local governments, as well as the military and police, NGOs, church leaders, and POs, enabled to craft strategies that benefit all stakeholders, especially so that, in our experience, peace and order issues have religious and cultural undertones. The Pro-Peace initiative of the LGU and Mentana Foundation Incorporated used this approach to address or discourage those that are medyo kumikiling sa extremism in our locality. And now I go to the increased accountability and transparency. Next slide, please. So with so much resources being mobilized, especially in emergency situations, presence of CSOs heighten accountability. Accountability is one of the pillars of public service to ensure the resources of the government shall never be put to waste or worse, used for personal gain. More watchful eyes equate to less corruption. Accountability, for example, so much resources were contributed by the private sector during the height of the pandemic. And the Task Force Sinabang, as the main coordinating body, enabled the LGU to not only mobilize the needed resources, but at the same time ensure accountability and transparency. Dole Philippines Incorporated, for instance, provided the venue for the packing of relief goods. The venue has complete security features. They have CCTV cameras, 24-hour security, and this ensured that no resources were diverted to any personal use. Mahintana Foundation Incorporated and the LGU handled the logistics and main management of resources through a check and balance mechanism. Next slide, please. So, takeaway naman natin. No? So, I'd like to discuss to you the learnings of the LGU. I would advise other LCEs to take advantage of the presence of CSOs and POs in their locality. Mas marami pong nagtutulong-tulungan, mas marami po tayong pwedeng gawin. No? Mas maganda na mas marami po tayong boses na pakikinggan. Nang sa ganon, sa bawat polisiya ho na gagawin natin, masisigurado ho natin na tama siya sa simula pa lang. No? Recognize adequacies and opportunities. LGU is limited and CSOs augment. It is a strategy to manage limited resources. So this is where you have a resource sharing. Collaborate and work together. Consider all views and situation of all parties and decide based on the common good. Highlight the benefit for all parties. It is not only the LGU that will benefit, but the CSOs as well. You have to learn to trust one another also. Learn to trust the private sector. Accept them as partners. Accept their criticisms and views because wala naman po talagang perfectong gobyerno. There is always room for improvement. And as long as these CSOs or the private sector, other stakeholders give you constructive feedbacks or criticisms, at least po meron ho tayong tsansa na baguhin po kung saan tayo nagkukulang, di ba? Kaya naman po tayo nilagay sa public service or maglingkod sa bayan para ho masigurado mas marami tayong matutulungan. And through these partnerships, masisigurado ho natin na pwede ho tayong mag-involve into better individuals and better public servants po. Next slide, please. So ways forward. The LGU has vast public-private partnership experience, and in many aspects, these collaborations became successful. This arrangement is expected to continue and is even expected to intensify as more functions and services shall be devolved to the LGU. In a sense, this public-private partnership is evolving into the concept of co-governance, wherein the private sector are not only partners, but are actually part of government. Co-governance is the way forward and the emerging trend in public governance. Hence, the main theme of public governance as to be understood today is the interaction of the government with the different stakeholders in order to achieve the state's purpose. It recognizes that the state is inadequate to fully respond to every need of the society. Hence, the engagement of the different stakeholders of the society becomes necessary. So yun po ang experience namin dito sa bayan ng Pulumulok. Although this is my last term already, but I have been very blessed to have very active civil society organizations in my community. And the moment that you malaman ho na nandyan sila, baka nag-aantay lang ho sila na itap, because I'm sure they are very much willing to help. Pag ho natin pigilan ang tulong nila dahil mas marami ho tayong pwedeng gawin pag mas marami ho tayong involved sa ating paggogobyerno sa ating mga kanya-kanyang bagay po. So maraming salamat po sa organizer sa Philippine Open Government Partnership for giving me this opportunity to share our experiences here in Pulumulok. Sana po ay may natutunan kayo sa akin ngayong hapon na ito. Ako po ay nagpapasalamat ng lubusan na nabigyan po ng pagkakataon. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon sa lahat.
Nako, maraming salamat, Mayor Honey, for sharing all of those things. And as you can read naman sa ating chat box, ang daming na-appreciate ka and the work that you're doing in Polomolok. And in the end, no, ang results talaga ay nakikita natin sa Polomolok in South Cotabato. So thank you for your leadership, Mayor Honey. I'm sure marami kayong gustong itanong, gustong sabihin, iparating. And so we're excited to go into our next portion of the program, which is the open forum. So ito yung opportunity where we will be able to discuss and share and 'di ba and probe further. Ang daming ideas na na-share ni Miss Jing, and I'd like to at this point I'd like to invite in the Zoom room again no si Miss Jing, si Dr. Jing Lopez. Maraming salamat Miss Jing. Please join us sa ating open forum. And then of course Mayor Honey, for sure maraming gusto silang sabihin at itanong sa iyo. So please also join us in this panel discussion and open forum. And then we're also happy to be joined this afternoon by officials from the Committee on Devolution of the Department of Budget and Management, si Director John Aris Makaspak. Maraming salamat, Sir Aris. Are you here already? Ayan, si Sir Aris is here with us as well. And also, the Director commit on the in the Committee of on Devolution sa galing naman sa DILG, Director Ana Liza Bonagua. Maraming salamat, Director Ana. You're also here with us na, no? Yan. Tama. Okay, nakikita ko naman na sila. All right, so there are 4 panelists this afternoon. Marami tayong experts na makakasama ngayong hapon na ito. And I'm sure marami din kayong tanong at gustong sabihin, insights and clarifications. But just to quickly mention na ang mechanics ng ating question and answer ay very simple. So, we will be reading yung mga, actually, there's a team already na nagko-consolidate ng inyong mga tanong, insights and suggestions na nasa chat box, both here in Zoom and also yung galing sa comments from the live, dahil naka-live tayo on Facebook. So, somebody's also generating the questions from the live on Facebook and also consolidating comments from the chat box. And so, we will now proceed with the question. So, ang unang tanong na gusto nating malaman ay, and this is addressed to all 4 of you sa lahat ng ating mga panelists this afternoon. After hearing all of that, no, yung sharing ni Miss Jing on CSO participation in local governance and also yung sharing ni Mayor Honey from the perspective of the LGU, this leads us to ask, no, anong mangyayari? What do you expect will change or will happen when we now implement the Mandanas ruling in 2022? So, sa additional follow-through questions would be, ano yung entry points? Ano yung saan magpa-participate? Anong platforms magpa-participate? At paano makakapag-participate ang CSOs dito sa devolution process? Meron ba itong accreditation process? Ano yung paano sineselect or in the future, paano pipiliin yung mga CSOs na uupo sa mga local special bodies and the committees of the LGUs. So, who would like to start? That's addressed to all 4. So, probably we'll start with DILG. How about that? Sir, Ma'am Annalisa, can you share with us po ano yung what do you think will happen in 2022? Ano yung changes po when we implement Mandana's ruling na?
Okay. Thank you. Na-unmute na ako. Marami pong salamat. This is a very interesting conversation, discussion among on civil society organization among different actors, no, from CSO themselves and also from our local chief executive and our colleague here from DBM. Well, siguro simulan ko yung discussion na yung recognition of the civil society organization as a significant partner in social, economic, and demographic democratic development, hindi lang sa Pilipinas, in Asia and the Pacific region, and maybe in developing countries. In the Philippines, alam naman natin, no, it's provided in the Constitution, which was forged and shaped after the People's Power Revolution noong 1986, no? And which recognizes really participation and empowerment, including the important role of the civil society organization. Kami sa DILG, syempre, we really recognize the importance of the civil society organization, hindi lang sa decision-making, planning, implementation, monitoring, at the local level, to increase the responsiveness and efficiency of the service delivery of our local government units. Provided naman sa local government code, no, may section 107, section 108, which really provides and encourage civil society participation in local governance. Based on, siguro, ito nabasa ko, no, based on a Code NGO assessment, no, title nga ay Assessment of the Enabling Environment for Civil Society Organization in the Philippines, conducted in 2016. Medyo matagal na. I think si Jing was involved with Code NGO then. Sinabi dito na that in the Philippines, the legal, regulatory, and policy environment in which CSO operate is generally positive, encouraging, and enabling civil society to operate. So, yun yung ating pinanggagalingan. At yung tanong mo tungkol sa paano makakapag-participate ang ating mga civil society organization, particularly on the side of DILG in local governance, syempre provided by law ang kanilang participation and in the local government code. But then meron tayong proseso in which which can be parang the starting point of the participation of the civil society, which is the accreditation and selection of the accredited CSO members to sit as representatives in the local special bodies of local government units, provided ito by law. To facilitate this process, the DILG has been issuing circulars every after election, no, to provide the guidance in the process of accreditation and selection of the CSOs and their representatives in local special bodies, no. As much as possible, narinig ko si Jing mention na sa kanyang report, stringent daw yung accreditation process, but if I remember right, halos taon-taon when we consult with CSOs, we tried very hard to simplify the process of accreditation. However, we have to comply with the requirements provided under the local government code, no? Parang yun na talaga yung pinakasiksik na simplification na kaya naming ibigay. The latest memo circulars that the latest guidance that we have, of course, nung election ng 2019 is the DILG Memorandum Circular 2019-172, which was issued on May 22, 2019, which provides for the CSO accreditation process, which include the inventory and the directory of CSOs, yung call for accreditation by local government units, the actual accreditation procedure, the selection of representative among CSO themselves to sit in the local special bodies, and the reconstitution and the convening of the local special bodies, wherein the local chief executive calls for the reorganization of the different local special bodies, lalo na yung Local Development Council, Local Health Board, Local School Board, at saka yung Peace and Order Council, kung saan mas naka-highlight yung participation ng ating mga civil society organization. Regarding, dire-diretso ba ako? Regarding din sa tanong, anong magbabago? O stop muna ako. Nakikita namin, o lagi namin sinasabi ni Director Aris, no, more than ever, mas kailangan ngayon ng participation of the all sectors by local government units, no, civil society, private sector, even development partners, academic institutions. They need all the help they can muster in order to support this devolution, new phase of devolution, to ensure that this will be a success. Kung alalahanin natin, no, 30 years na yung devolution, no, 1991, 1992 hanggang 2021. But then ngayon, may new phase of devolution which we hope to happen within 3 years. So yung transition ng 3 taon is really a challenge for our local government units. So kailangan nila ng lahat ng suporta, much more from our civil society organization. And i-end ko, hindi lang no sa mga policy ng siguro Director Aris, no, kasunod na policy is yung engagement ng CSO, kasi we have lined up and we have laid down the policy on how national government will prepare for the devolution by next year, how local government units should also prepare. May third party pa no sa ating preparation. Nandyan pa ang civil society organization which is the voice of the people, no, kasi government, national, local government, nawala yung ating voice of the people, and I think the civil society ably represent the voice of the people. So, mag-end muna ako doon.
Thank you, Director, no, for sharing with us your points, and yung parang we get a sense of an openness from DILG, really encouraging civil society participation, especially in the next 3 years. So I'll like to throw in the question, Ma'am Jing, Miss Jing, ano yung ina-expect natin from the CSO perspective naman sa side natin? What are the things or asan po yung nakikita nating entry points with the Mandanas ruling? Saan po tayo pwedeng mag-engage, and paano natin talagang ma-maximize, forgive me for the term, pero paano natin ma-maximize yung opportunity na ito?
From yung CSO lens, si Director Ana, she already mentioned no the main avenues no for CSOs to participate, no. Parang yung more than ever doon is highlighted no by the fact that mas malaki kasi yung at stake na resources, no, that will be subject no, for allocation. So ang challenge kasi, how can the decision in terms of resource allocation of government be made more equitable and responsive, diba, sa pangangailangan talaga. So ngayon, as sinasabi naman na yung CSOs, kay Mayor Hani, masyadong na-highlight yun eh, no? Yung value added ng perspective no, ng CSOs, aside from mas marami yung resources na mobilize, but I think the advocacy and the reason for being of CSOs talaga, which is to promote social justice and social equity, di ba? Yun ang bit-bit kasi nila. So for me, ang issue kasi ng accreditation, kung yun eh, pwedeng tulungan na lang talaga yun. Tama si Director Ana in saying that nagawa na namin lahat. Tama yung Director Ana, kasi I've always been there, no? Tuwing election time, after election, in-enhance yan ang provisions no ng MC in terms of paano ba gawin yung proseso na maging more inclusive, no? And we are limited kasi by what's in the code and the IRR of the code. Hindi natin pwedeng bawasan kasi yon, no? So we have to maintain kung ano yung nandun, di ba? But anyway, for me, ang pinaka main avenue kasi, direct avenue no for CSOs, so yung entry points no to engage no in the devolution no and in the PFM would really be yung planning no leading toward decision making sa budgeting. No? Ngayon, ang mechanism doon would be the local development councils. So I think magko-converge din naman talaga yung proseso sa DPP formulation doon sa Director Ana, tama ba? Sa CDP, no? Later on, magko-converge din naman talaga doon. Ika-capture yon ng CDP, yung magiging laman no, ng DTP no, in the next 3 years. Parang gano'n. So to me, it's very important no, that CSOs will really seize no, that opportunity to be to become members no, of the LDC. Ang sinasabi ng karanasan kanina, no, yung DLG na nagkaroon ng initiative to have a more enabling environment, na encourage na yung mga LGUs ngayon na hindi sila mag-limit sa 25% lamang no, na composition of CSOs, right? So if we are looking at yung more than 70% of CSOs ngayon, natanggap na nila na kailangan mas higit sa 25% ang CSOs, that should be sustained. No? Dapat ituloy lang yon yung gano'n, di ba? So, ang ating desire na gawing 50%, no? Ito kasing karanasan natin sa BUB eh. No, that can happen. In fact, some 12% of the LGUs already had their LDCs na 50% yung members ay CSOs. No? For me, ganon. Pero I would also like to highlight the fact no, that ang LDC is only functional twice a year. Twice lang sila nag-meet yung minimum, right? So, the real task of planning ay nangyayari hindi sa LDC and bank. Nangyayari siya doon sa sectoral committees. So what we're saying is that pagka nabuo, pagka na-reconstitute ang for example, ng Municipal Development Council, isabay na yung committees under that. No? Kasi yung mga CSOs can really become part no, of every of the relevant committee. No? Depende kung ano yung kanyang advocacy, yung kanyang agenda. No? The sectoral committees, unlimited ang kanilang meeting time. No? Doon mangyayari yung pagkaroon ng consensus, ano pa talaga yung assessment nila no, sa health, sa education, sa yung sa mga social sector, mga groups natin, no, yung people with disabilities, no, yung gano'n, no. So doon mag-umpisa no yung entry point. So that has been our advocacy na seryosohin yung sectoral committee. So kasi kahit hindi ka accredited, you can really become members, no, a member of the committee. Another one, yung monitoring, no. Pagka nabuo na yung plan at ma-implement na yung plan, vital ang role ng CSOs sa monitoring, right? And ang ating naging karanasan din, marami sa mga LGUs nakadiskubre na magagaling pala yung CSO sa monitoring, and that's really their rightful place, no? Yung third party, no? Magagaling sila, no? Lalo na nung BUB time, no? They did the monitoring part for the LGU, and in fact a number of them of the LGUs no kept no that relationship. They continue to tap no the CSOs in monitoring subsequently no yung mga projects. Another would be yung policy making. Ito yung gawain no ng sanggunian every week, di ba, on a weekly basis, di ba, nagbi-meet yung sanggunian. And I just wanted to say that sa any development issue kasi, hindi naman limitado sa programa at proyekto lang yung intervention in order to address no, that problem. Pwede ring mere policy, no? Pwedeng walang proyekto, walang programa, no? Yung policy lang no, na i-issue, resolution or ordinance ng local sanggunian. And definitely, CSOs no, can become adept no, in terms of their legislative advocacy. No? Yung ganon. For all we know, mga kamag-anak din naman nila yung mga konsehal, no? Yung ganon. So, that's one. Meron pong nag-chat kanina yung sa implementation. Pwede talaga yung CSO magiging partner ng LGU as implementer. Diba? Kaya lang ibang rules of the game yon. Pagka-implementer ka, yung relationship mo with the local government, para kang pumasok sa kontrata na i-implement mo yung isang proyekto ng government. So, the procurement rules apply there. So, yun. Sa tingin ko yun lang sa planning, sa legislation, sa monitoring no, and evaluation. And yung yung policy, no? Yung policy, crafting policies to address specific issues.
Thank you, Miss Jing. Very clear recommendations, kung saan magpa-participate ang CSOs. Thank you, Miss Jing. Well taken yan. Nagte-take notes ang mga CSOs at this time. And because a large portion or a large aspect of this Mandanas ruling affects finances, no? Sir Aris, ano pong ma-expect nating pagbabago, changes in the next 3 years when the Mandanas ruling and the executive order for its implementation will start, no? Will start in 2022. Paano po kaya tulad nung nasabi ni Miss Jean kanina, 'di ba? Maganda na dun pa lang sa planning stage, even at the committees, makapag-participate na ang CSOs. Pag merong plano, meron niyang kaakibat na budget, 'di ba? So sa budget process naman, how can we CSO
and we took that as an opportunity to already hand over to the LGUs the primary responsibility of delivering certain functions and services which fall within the expenditure assignments of the LGUs. So basically, yung mga functions and services na pine-perform ngayon ng agencies na dapat LGUs yung nag-implement, in the 3-year period, ibibigay na yan sa mga LGUs. And yung kumbaga, operational document natin for the implementation of this full devolution ay yung Devolution Transition Plan, which the national government agencies and the LGUs are mandated to prepare. So in the preparation of the devolution transition plans, we have emphasized in the implementing rules and regulations of PO number 138, the roles of the non-governmental organizations, the civil society organizations, and the people's organization. So ang sabi nga natin dun sa implementing rules and regulations of PO number 138, which we also adopted, by the way, in the joint memorandum circulars for the preparation of the NGA and the TP guidelines, is the CSOs, NGOs, and POs are encouraged to participate in the preparation, implementation, and monitoring of the devolution transition plans of both the national government agencies and the local government units. So with respect to the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, yun yung na-emphasize talaga natin na papel ng civil society organizations. But even before the Mandanas ruling, meron na tayong mga in place na policies with regard to the participation of the CSOs in both the planning and budgeting process at the local level. In fact, the Department of Budget and Management in 2014 or in 2015 already issued yung guidebook on the participation of the CSOs in the budget process. And that was a formal issuance of the Department of Budget and Management. It was formally adopted through Local Budget Circular number 106, which we eventually adopted in the Budget Operations Manual for 2016. So tapos dun sa Budget Operations Manual din, in-emphasize din namin doon as one of the budgeting framework for local budgeting is yung participatory governance. So nilagay namin yon as one of the framework for local budgeting because we acknowledge that the participatory budgeting would help to promote transparency, and it will also have the potential to reduce potential local government inefficiencies and corruption. So nakalagay na yan. Alam na rin ng mga local government units yan. In our capacity building programs, we always emphasize that you should adapt this participatory budgeting through the participation of the CSOs in the budget process. Although nilagay din namin doon yung mga emerging roles lang nila. So hanggang saan ba yung proseso na kung saan pwedeng mag-participate yung civil society organizations in the budget process para malinaw, kumbaga para maiwasan yung away or yung, should I say, parang encroachment na of the functions and powers of the local government unit. So nilagay na natin yan even before this. But to further emphasize that with regard to the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, nireiterate natin yon in the guidelines implementing the full devolution as a result of the implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas Garcia case.
Thanks, Sir Aris, for reminding us about it. And for sure, karamihan ng mga CSOs na nandito sa room na to has been part of that process. Yun lang, syempre may feedback as well on the implementation. And for sure, you are also aware of those. So let me just proceed po sa ating second question. No? Do government, so let me just read it po, do government or LGUs and other government agencies have openness in convergence effort or partnership with CSOs or NGOs at the local level? And were there challenges with PhilJEP's requirements when it comes to partnerships with CSOs? Definitely maraming challenges yan, ano, but if you can share with us, kasi sometimes ito yung difficulty, no, sometimes parang when we have these conversations and learning sessions, parang it feels like andyan na ang policies, nandyan na, it's on paper, we see the openness that is parang parang being shared by the government representatives. Pero when we already implement sa local level and engage with government at the local level, parang nandun siguro yung gap. So, ano po yung masasabi ninyo about this? Especially, there's also that question on PhilJeps. Kasi yan yung madalas na pino-point out sa amin. Sige po. Would like to take on this question.
Siguro magdagdag ako, pero yung sa PhilJeps, baka si Director Aris ang mas makakasagot ng gusto. Dagdag ko lang, siguro sagot din sa tanong ngayon, yung sabi nga natin, the policies are in place, may challenge implementation on the ground. I think siguro kailangan talaga ng puspusang capacity building orientation sa local government units and ensure may monitoring system at kung makita nyo, nakasama na sa mga performance assessment tools ng DILG for local government units, yung ensure compliance ng local government units sa participation ng CSO. Siguro yan, through the years, no, hanggang may mga active CSOs na nandyan sa baba ay mape-perfect natin yung proseso. Dagdag ko lang siguro doon sa mga engagement. No, aside from the CSO engagement, ngayong may mandamus ruling, so sila ay kasama sa pagpaplano ng local government units. May members ng CSO na umuupo sa Devolution Transition Committees sa lahat ng level, provinces, cities, municipalities, at saka even sa barangay. At nakalagay din dun sa policy ng JMC, ng DILG-DBM na hindi lang sa formulation ng DTP, pati sa implementation ng transition during the transition period at even beyond the transition, yung pagka fully devolved na sa local government unit, especially in the implementation of the function. Sa DILG, actually, we want really to we have initiated, or we have released recent initiative increasing the involvement of civil society organization in local governance beyond ano na yung mga nangyayari ngayon, no? So and we want the CSO to live up to the expectation, yung three-way role ng CSO, gabay, kaagapay at bantay, no? Yung gabay by seeking their support in the formulation of policies, plans, investment programs, hindi lang sa local pati sa national. Kaagapay, no, assessments, monitoring, and even implementation of the programs of government, particularly local government units, kasi they would ensure inclusiveness of the programs kasi they have the sector which they advocate, no, to be beneficiaries. At yung bantay in monitoring and evaluating programs and project and also ensuring transparency and accountability. At ito binigyang buhay, no, in the recent policies of the ILG, no, yun nga, as members of the Development Council, they take part in the preparation of the LG's Comprehensive Development Plan. And I hope with the help of our also academic institution, yung presence ng CSO ay na-highlight kasi tinutukan namin yung pag-formulate ng comprehensive development plans ng LG for the last 3 years. No? At thank you sa aming CSO partners. Ngayon, ang ating status ay 73% ng ating lahat ng local governments. 1,200 of the 1,600 already have updated comprehensive development plan. No? So it is, I think this is the only time that we have reached that high na even at the end of the term, no, maraming updated CDP kasi nag-update naman yan every 3 years. Pero ito yung, I think this is the highest completion or compliance rate that we have received. And recently, CSO involvement in the assessment of CDP, hindi lang formulation, CDP assessment na ito. So higher level assessment of the CDP is also being promoted with the involvement of the civil society organization. Sa DILG MC 2021-037, ang title ay Updated Guidelines on the Assessment of the Comprehensive Development Plans of Cities and Municipalities. CSOs are prescribed to sit as one of the members of the Provincial CDP Technical Assistance Committee. So kasama sila ng provincial team na mag-a-assess ng CDPs ng cities and municipalities. So yun yung bago nating engagement, no? Hindi lang sa formulation ng CDP, pati naman sa assessment. So pwede nilang hanapin ngayon, tingnan kung yung kanila bang isinulong sa city and municipality ay naipasok talaga, no, through the review by the provincial government. And then also, siguro natabunan lang ito kasi 2019 yung issuance. Meron din kaming DILG issuance 2019-188, Organization and Reconstitution of the Sub-Regional Project Monitoring Committees, yung PMCs, to be established at the provincial, city, and municipal level shall have CSOs and NGO representative as mandatory members. So kailangan po alam natin yan so that we can invoke our rights there. No? So the local PMC shall monitor and evaluate the programs and projects to include the following, yung PPAs na nandoon sa local development investment programs ng mga local government units, PPAs funded by the locally generated resources which are implemented by the respective local government units, as well as programs and projects funded with fund support from national government, no, lalo na yung mga nakaraan, yung mga nakapaloob sa SLGP, AM, ano pa ba yan, mga assistance to municipalities, yung sa road project namin, Salin Tubig, and a lot more. Yun po ay nakapaloob doon sa ating portal ng Subaybayan na I think ginagamit hindi lang ng DILG pati ng mga civil society organization. At moreover, hindi naman to bago pero gusto lang din naming banggitin sa performance assessment kasama ang ating mga civil society partners ng mga regional offices in the assessment of LGUs during the SGLG assessment. So sana natatap yung inyong mga organization. No? Hindi po mabubuo yung SGLG assessment kung walang CSO partner kasi nakalagay po yon sa memorandum circular. However, recently wala po kaming assessment for 2020 and 2021 in view of COVID-19. So yun po yung lumalawak na, dumadami at nagle-level up yung ating engagement with the civil society organization.
Thank you, Director Ana. Ang daming points noon and nagte-take notes din po kami. Siguro lang din dahil nasa policy no yung mandatory na participation ng CSO. And it also reminds me dun sa pinresent ni Ms. Jean kanina, particularly yung process and siguro dun yung isang gap, yung process of selecting the CSOs at the local level. Dun minsan nagkakagulatan or minsan dun siguro as per experience, I think yun yung isang gap. So if that can be discussed, especially no for the next 3 years na medyo malaki-laking usapin itong devolution. Alright, so puntahan ko po yung pangalawang, yung letter B doon sa ating question na na-erase kanina. Sir Aris, how can you speak more about dun sa PhilJeps and is there a window kung paano I don't know how to better or parang maging smoother yung transaction between LGU and CSO kasi ang dami rin naming mga LGU partners na nagsasabi na we really want to engage you, we know you have the technical expertise, pero ito yung process of PhilJeps and then when we read the PhilJeps na mga requirements, parang ang hirap ma-comply tapos parang nakaset up yung PhilJeps for private sector, business-oriented groups. Parang yun yung gap naman probably in capacity nung local NGOs dun sa PhilJeps. So, Sir Aris, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, I do apologize though. I'm not really familiar dun sa second question so I cannot really answer. Kasi sa namin yan, there's another unit in DBM that handles that. But dun sa first question nila siguro, do government or LGUs and agencies have openness and convergence effort with partnership with the CSOs at the local level? So ano naman, as I have mentioned, there's no dearth in policy with regard to the convergence between the national government, the LGUs, and the civil society organizations. For the national government, palagi din naming nilalagay yan in our national budget preparation guidelines yung participation and the need to report the inputs of the CSOs on the projects and activities proposed by the national government agencies. Now, for the local government units, nasabi ko nga kanina yung guidebook na na-issue ng DBM, which we also included in the performance assessment tool, which is adapted by the DBM to check the level of compliance by the LGUs with the public financial management policies and principles that we espoused at the local level. So there is really no northern policy. So there is no reason for both the government and the CSOs not to have that convergence and implement yung yung good relationship supposedly between the government and the civil society organization as the representatives of the civil society organizations, or by serving watchdog dun sa implementation of programs and projects of the national government.
Salamat, Sir Aris. Sige po. So, yung question on the PhilJeps was, we will take note of that, and I'm sure DBM will find ways to respond to it. But salamat, Sir Aris, for pointing out yung openness talaga. We really feel it, especially in learning sessions such as this. Maraming salamat, Sir Aris. Sana dumami pa kayo, no? Especially at the local level, para mas ma-feel pa namin at the local level yung openness for engagement with us. Ma'am Jing, I will not let go of this opportunity to ask you, baka may ideas ka already or recommendations based on your experience and studies kung paano po yung paano kaya pa natin ma-feel at the local level yung parang concrete samples of engagement. And then ise-segue ko na dun sa pangatlong tanong po, na to ensure accountability naman. Ito madalas sinasabi or kina-counter ito sa atin ng government, or pino-point out sa atin ng government, no? How do we ensure that when we partner with CSOs, ano yung parang accountability measures na in place? Miss Jing, your thoughts on this, please.
I didn't quite get yung first question. Medyo na-gets ko, but I'm not quite sure. Pakiulit, please.
The second question, Miss Jing, kasi
yung
talks
first
about the first question.
First,
okay. Yung governments pa, do governments, whether local or national, is open to convergence and partnerships with CSOs and NGOs at the local level? I'm trying to ask if you have experience, and parang can you share concrete examples of this openness and convergence between CSOs and LGUs na experience niyo, or probably if we see more of the challenges, then what are your recommendations so that we also feel this openness at the local level?
Siguro I tend to answer the challenges, the challenges. So kasi pagdating kasi sa experiences nung partnership, no, ng convergence, medyo marami naman talagang masaside. In fact nga si Mayor Hani kanina, no, medyo maganda yung kanyang pag-illustrate. I think yung challenge ngayon, maraming mga opportunities for engagement. In fact, padami at pa-level up. Nasabi nga ni Director Ana kanina, CSOs are now being encouraged to participate not only in monitoring, no, sa project level, no, but plan level, assessment, no, for example, of a CDP. Pag ganun, di ba? Medyo mataas na level na yon. Sa akin lang, parang those opportunities can also be overwhelming to the CSOs on the ground. Number one, Kung hindi malinaw kasi yung what's in it for them, the incentives part, medyo mahirap din sa kanila, no, kasi they will really invest, no, their time, their talent, no, their energy, di ba, for them to be able to participate meaningfully in those spaces, no, for participation, yung ganon. So to me, the challenge there is may malinaw din na what's in it for them na yung incentives part. But I think much more, ano tawag to, yung para bigger the challenge would be yung capacity, no, ng CSOs. So kasi the higher the requirements, so for them in terms of level of knowledge and ano ba yon, yung expertise ang kailangan, mas ano yon, mas ano yun, kumbaga mas exacting for them. No? Kumbaga parang hindi naman yun ganun kadali. So, ang nakikita ko dito, I think one way to address the capacity gaps, meron kasing support system din na nakikreate along the way. No? I would like to mention particularly yung move ngayon ng DOLG to promote the formation of CSO desks, no? CSO desks, plus the formation of the People's Councils. No? For me, very vital ang role, no, ng People's Council. Many years ago, na-prove na namin yung pagiging critical, no, ng function ng isang coalition, no, of CSOs, no, working for a common cause through engaging government. No? Yung formation of yung nga, mga municipal and provincial councils, no, of CSOs, no, in those areas. So to me, importante yun kasi marami siyang function yung representation issue, pwede sila magkaroon ng role, no, to define the criteria. They can also serve, no, as ano yun, yung daluyan, no, ng capacity building interventions, right? In a more systematic manner, no? Pwede silang magiging daluyan ng information that are important, no, for CSOs, no, to get their acts better together, no, to engage, diba? So, ano yun, parang to me, sa support system na yung People's Council. Yung wag lang siya ma-elite capture, that's really, I think yung ganung support na in terms of policy ng DLG is really coming, no, from the good experience, no, nila Miss Araw, nila Sir Boyet Arenio ng Iloilo, no? We're not talking here of Naga City alone, no, NCPC, no, but all other cities and provinces that demonstrated, no, the success, no, yung successful experience in terms of, you know, yung role nga ng People's Council. The CSO desk, importante yun, no, kasi mas magkaroon, no, ng focal, no, na point, focal na office, no, in an LGU that concerns itself, no, with mga CSOs na pangangailangan, right? So yun lang, para sa akin lang, parang i-harness yun, kailangan alalayan, no, yung capacities na required din sa CSOs for them to be able to measure up, no, to expectations na pataas din to engage government. Diba? Sino yung tutugon, no, nung capacity gap na yon, right? For one, CSOs can hardly survive. No? Nagkaroon ng donor fatigue many years ago. At nung nagkaroon ng COVID, na-cut off na rin yung kanilang mga relationship in terms of funding sources, right? So, yeah, you can only give what you have, no? You can only give what you have. So I think that should also be a concern. You provide on the supply side, but the demand side can only do its role while supply lasts. Alam mo yun, yung meron silang panggasolina. I mean, not literally, no? But of course, we find many of our CSOs na nasa survival mode. So to me, I think it's important na to harness, no, to develop na that support system locally para dun sa pag-help, no, na ma-level up ang capacity ng CSOs. And I'm really pointing to the potential role of the People's Council and the CSO desk.
Thank you, Miss Jing. Thank you for voicing out, no, for being the voice for the CSOs. Really very grateful for your inputs as well. I'm going now to the last question, but definitely yung mga other questions are still welcome. Pero we will just gather them and then the OGP will find a way na maka-capture yung questions at mababalik sa resource persons and then ma-feedback back to the OGP community. So I'm now going to the third question, and this is going to be the last. Right before you say you have the opportunity to share your final messages. So the third and last question would be, paano daw natin ma-ensure ang accountability, especially with the Mandanas ruling na super lalaki yung budget ng ating LGUs, and madedevolve yung some of the services. How do we ensure accountability in the implementation of the Mandanas ruling? And then, ano po yung may follow-through question? Are there penalties or disciplinary actions for LGUs who do not engage with CSOs? Okay, so who's going to answer it first? Baka si Director Ana.
Mahirap mauna doon, no? So ang tanong ay how do we ensure accountability? Well, even before the Supreme Court ruling, there are already established accountability mechanism for local government units. No, marami tayo mga performance assessment tools sa DILG, Seal of Good Local Governance, at marami pa yung mga anak-anak. Sa DBM, meron tayong PIFMAT, and then score ng bayan sa Department of Finance. And even the sectoral agencies, may kanya-kanya sila ding performance monitoring, like yung competitiveness index ng DTI, may mga parang Orchid Award ang DOH, and a lot more, no? Marami. Siguro ang pagkakaiba lang ngayon kasi the LGUs will have greater resources, so the more na dapat nating strengthen yung mga accountability mechanism to ensure that these are put to good use by local government units. So yun yung ginagawa naman natin. We are updating the guidelines or ensuring coherence from planning, investment programming to budgeting, and kasama doon yung CSO participation and the processes along that area, no? And then ngayon din tinitingnan alinsunod din sa bagong batas ng Seal of Good Local Governance, at dahil ito nag-increase din naman yung responsibilities ng local government units. So from last year hanggang ngayon, ina-update natin yung performance indicators ng Seal of Good Local Governance, no? So yun yung mga ano. And then inilalagay natin yung compliance ng local government units sa governance mechanism, sa entitlement nila sa mga support program naman ng national government. Like for example, itong darating na kung sakaling ma-aprobahan ng Congress, yung Growth Equity Fund, nakaakibat ito sa compliance nila sa governance indicators or governance mechanism. So, tinatay up natin, no? Parang carrot and stick, tinatay up natin yung performance nila sa incentives na binibigay naman natin. So, yun lang nakikita ko. And isa yan, kaakibat ng lahat ng yan na ginagawa ng national government ay yun yung presence ng civil society organizations na titingin at nandoon sa ground. Gusto ko lang dagdagan din yung sinare ni Jing. Siguro ang nakikitang challenge naman ng local government units with regards to CSO participation, yung local presence, no? While there are very active national advocates sa taas, no, and very competent, minsan pagdating sa baba wala silang local presence. So yan yung nagiging feedback sa amin ng mga local government units. So ang nangyayari minsan nakikreate sila ng kanilang civil society organization to address certain concerns of the different sectors. So siguro yon. And then yung ding umbrella and coordination support, kasi kailangan may mag-hurdle sa kanila from the top to the ground. Kasi parang tulad ng government, merong structure from the higher, national, regional, hanggang sa local government. Siguro dapat din may ganong structure ng CSOs that will guide them. Ano ba dapat ang ating ibinabangga, isinusulong ngayon sa local governments? Kasi kung manggagaling din sila sa LGU, syempre kung ano yung priority ni LGU, yun din yung magiging ano nila, parang they will just have to support that. Pero kung meron silang sarili ding structure, network from up na nagsasabi sa kanila ito yung mga dapat natin gawin, and also nagkakapacitate sa kanila on how to engage with local government units, baka kailangan meron din ganung structure.
Thanks, Miss
You.
Anna.
Yes.
With great money, with more money comes more responsibilities. And I guess ito rin yung i-ensure nila, Sir Aris. So, your take on this, Sir Aris?
Yes, tama si Director Ana, no? Nasabi na niya halos lahat ng mga existing systems namin to ensure the accountability of the local government officials and personnel. And siguro I would just like to zero in na lang dun sa ano natin, sa mga existing policies natin na dinagdag natin to ensure the accountability of the local government units. Sabi ko nga kanina, as part of the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, yung mga LGUs at NGAs magpe-prepare sila ng kanilang mga devolution transition plan. On the part of the national government agencies, yung important component ng kanilang devolution transition plan ay yung definition of standards for the delivery of the devolved services, which will include yung mga minimum cost, the scope, and the quality of services that should be complied with by the local government units when they are already implementing the programs and projects. Kakibat nun, isa pang importanteng component ng devolution transition plan ng national government agencies is the framework for monitoring and performance assessment of the local government units, which may include the grant of incentives as mentioned by Director Ana earlier, katulad nga nung GEF, and the imposition of sanctions. So, yun yung sa national government. Meron silang standard na i-prescribe at meron silang performance monitoring na kung saan titingnan nila whether or not the local government units are complying with those standards. Now, on the part of the LGUs, meron din silang LGU-DTP, and the primary purpose of the LGU-DTP is for the national government agencies to have the guidance or basis on the monitoring and performance assessment naman of the local government units. So yun yung mga kumbaga systems na ilagay namin in the guidelines na pwedeng pagmulan ng mga findings natin or observations and the corresponding actions that need to be undertaken to resolve or address the possible inefficiencies or ineffectivity that may ineffectiveness that may occur in the implementation of the local government units of the programs and projects from the increase in their financial resources. Now, dun sa tanong naman, meron bang penalty on the part of the LGUs that will not engage the CSOs in the process? Well, sa ngayon, yung ano talaga natin is more of a carrot approach. Like in the case of the Public Financial Management Assessment tool ng DBM, we have the citizens' participation as one of the critical dimensions. 7 critical dimension yon, and one of the critical dimensions is the citizens' participation. Tapos meron pang mga sub-indicators doon which determine the level of compliance of LGUs in engaging the citizens in the planning and budget process. So kung yung LGU, for example, hindi niya sinasama yung mga CSOs in its planning process, hindi niya sinasama in its budgeting process, budget preparation, budget implementation process, mas bababa yung score na makukuha niya, which subsequently may affect the possibility or probability of that LGU getting a financial assistance from the available subsidies provided by the national government. Katulad nga ng local government support fund at yung na kung saan naisama yung growth equity fund ngayon na bagong financial assistance sa mga LGUs na related din sa implementation of additional functions and services by the LGUs pursuant to the implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas-Garcia case.
Salamat, Sir Aris. Miss Jing, may gusto ka bang idagdag kung paano natin ma-ensure ang accountability? I'm sure na-mention mo na ito earlier. Baka may gusto kang idagdag, or would you rather go na to your final message para sa hapong ito?
Pwede na siguro yung final message. So, ako mag-umpisa?
Yes, please.
Yeah, definitely there are still gaps, no? There are still challenges that need to be addressed, no? In terms of policy, in terms of capacities, no, na kailangan ng mga CSOs. And then given the greater resources na binababa sa LGU, no, for them to kasi nga devolve, no, for them to allocate, no, they make decisions kung saan yun pupunta. That's also spells, no, the higher need, no, for CSOs also to do their part in terms of making government become more responsive and accountable, no. So malaki pa yung dapat gawin. I think that sa akin lang parang it's important to identify parang ano ba yung dapat unahin, no? Parang first thing first, no. In any given locality, iba-iba kasi yung situation, no? Iba-iba yung context ng governance, iba-iba din yung dynamics, no, that's existing between the government, no, at saka yung civil society doon, no. May isang nag-post na question na, CSOs may have their voice, but the vote is still with the mayor. Di ba? Yung ganon. And that's really possible, no, kasi the power relations existing in that area is such that hindi pa kumbaga wala pa sa ganung level ng bargaining ng yung CSOs, no, that the LCE is still able to get away with yung ganung klaseng decision making. So the challenge there is for the civil society to improve, no, on their capacity to deal, no, with that government official, di ba? Kaya nga may networking, kaya nga meron tayong mga ganung pwedeng gawin, no. So yun. Sa akin yung mga first thing first, importante sa tingin ko yung mga CSOs, no, to have that reckoning. Ano na yung meron sila at saka ano yung mga assets, no? Ano yung mga positive things in terms of policies, no, na nandyan na for them to seize, no, or to take advantage of, no? Nabanggit ni Director Ana kanina, no, yung maganda sana kung meron ding parang vertical, no, may mga CSOs din, no, at certain level, yung term niya yung umbrella, yung mag-serve na as umbrella coordination support, no, sa civil society, no. So yun ang role kasi ng mga networks by right. Kaya meron tayong provincial networks, meron tayong mga regional networks, no, sa code. Pero code NGO lang yon, no. And I think in many areas, in a number of areas, kahit na meron tayong provincial network doon, some CSOs would still tend to look at a provincial network affiliated to code NGO as something na may pagka-exclusive. Di ba? The challenge there is, paano mo ba gawing umbrella talaga, no, yung network na yan of CSO, so yung local people's council na sinasabi natin, no, na hindi lang siya na-identify, code yan, malakas kasi ang code, yung ganon, no. So may mga ganong dynamics. I think that's very important, no, parang we build on what we have, we kind of maximize on, no, yung policies na meron na pwede natin gamitin, and then for the CSOs to prioritize in terms of capacity sa kailangan nila tutukan, no. Yung issue ng accreditation is really lingering, no. I would suggest that CS also should try to advocate or to influence, no, the version of the MC that will be issued in 2022 galing sa DILG, no, that will guide the process of accreditation and selection of CSOs in the LSBs, no, particularly or especially the local development council. Yun lang naman ang purpose noon, na kaya yan ini-issue each time, no, para ma-enhance, So yun. And involved kami ngayon, no, nandiyan si Pase sa 9 cities, no, ng change. We would like that dahil 9 cities lang ito, sana makapag-demonstrate ba ng how to maximize, no, yung enabling policy environment, and then yung presence of local people's council and presence of CSO desks, no, and then meron kang on the side na continuous, no, na constituency building and networking para magiging more inclusive and diverse yung formation ng mga CSOs, no, and then gawing purposive, no, yung yung pag-interface, no, with the local government. So we hope that magkaroon ng demonstration effect ba, no, yung gagawin namin sa 9 cities. And at tingin ko, hindi yun mahirap gawin sa mga areas na meron na siyang mga mga assets, no, yung may mga low-hanging fruits that they can already pick, no, magamitin para mag-yield no ng fruits or ng results pala ng results. So, yun lang yung last words. And thank you very much no, for this opportunity. Thank you, Director. I learned a lot ng mga bago sa mga sinabi ninyo, mga directors, Aris and Director Ana.
Thanks, Miss Jing. Madami din kaming natutunan from you this afternoon and every time that we're together. So next, we'd like to hear from Sir Aris. Kayo, Sir Aris, from DBM po, your final messages, probably ano po yung call to action ninyo sa aming mga CSOs. Karamihan dito ay CSOs. So ano po yung inyong final messages for us?
Yes, short message lang, no. I would just like to assure na yung DBM is very supportive of yung parang strengthening further yung role of the civil society organization in governance, particularly in budgeting, both at the national and at the local level. So for the national government, I was informed po that kasi sa local po ako eh. So for the national, yung sa BP Form B natin is now being evaluated by the DBM. So tinitingnan dyan yung extent of the programs and projects endorsed by the CSOs that were considered in the budget proposals of the national government agencies. And I think it is a continual process naman for the improvement ng system natin. Now for the local government units, one of our projects in 2022 is the updating of the budget operations manual for local government units, and I hope that we will be able to improve in that budget operations manual that will be issued the participation of the civil society organizations in the budget and planning process. Siguro kung meron mang kulang dun sa mga existing policies natin, as we have included already in the handbook and in the existing budget operations manual, we always welcome po yung mga suggestions. So in-evaluate po natin yan. Gusto natin talaga when we craft policies inclusive. And mas maganda if you have suggestions po through the OGP or through the DILG, pwede nyo pong isabihin yung mga suggestions po ninyo na kailangan namin integrate in that updating of the budget operations manual, which hopefully will really increase and strengthen yung participation and engagement of the civil society organizations in governance, particularly in the area of planning and budgeting. So I assure po the support of the DBM sa mga partners natin from the civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, Sir Aris. We're learning a lot from you as well this afternoon. Next up, Director Ana, may particular po kami sa inyo. May particular tanong sa last message ninyo po. In particular po, kasi parang all of this will boil down to the local government code. There's a question po kung do you see or is there a discussion within DILG? Parang it's also in the law na kailangan i-review ang local government code and it's past due yata. So is there a current discussion about that? Do you have recoms on reviewing the local government code, etc.? So and then of course your final message. Salamat, Director Ana.
Yes, of course. Actually, halos naman hindi naman natatapos o wala na nga timelines of review of the local government code. There has been a lot of reviews that have been done, particularly sa DILG. No, we did a review, I think 2004 and then 2016, and the output of this, this is part of a collaborative effort between among the oversight agencies, DILG, DBM, and our partners, local government leagues. Actually, yung result of that, with the support of ADB, the result of that was submitted to the office of Senator Angara, and Senator Angara have filed the 10 bills that resulted from the study in the 17th and 18th Congress. Tama ba? 19 tayo ngayon, no? Hindi ko lang alam kung ngayong 19 kasi mas nakafocus sila sa COVID-19 response. But then yun yung ano natin, no? And of course with the Debolusyon, there's still a line of bills that we are supporting and advocating for Congress to pass, no? Pati yung hindi pa na ipapass, although final, hindi the code to ensure that we propose and hopefully the Congress pass legislation that will support the smooth transitioning to full devolution. So, yun. Well, in ending, siguro, end ko na, no? Itong Supreme Court ruling, no? With the SC ruling, the local government units are given the increased financial capacity to deliver basic services to the people. Yun yung pinaka-gist lang, no? And being on the ground and directly feel the needs of and aspiration of their constituent, they can enable prompt responses and better services responsive to the needs of their constituent. However, this can only be ensured or assured if the citizens have effective channels through which their voices can be heard. No? Kasi kung ang mga tao hindi naman nagsasalita o wala namang nagbabackup sa kanila, hindi rin marinig doon. So we know that the civil society organization can able represent the voice of are able representative of the voice of the people. So exactly the People's Council. So therefore, this new phase of devolution, while the national government at yung local government units plays a major role kasi sila yung magta-transfer, ang LGU ang sasambot, we should also underscore the crucial role of a third party. Sabi ko palagi, the civil society organization. It goes without saying also the need for the CSO to be capacitated to enable them to ably represent the people in local governance processes, yung sinasabi lagi natin, PFM processes, planning, budgeting, expenditure management, and in monitoring and evaluation, no, lumalawak na, and even local service delivery, and all yung mas kilala ang CSOs natin in exacting accountability and transparency sa local level. So in ending, siguro we can say that the success of this new milestone in our continuing journey in local empowerment and local autonomy, aside from the delineation of roles between national and local government, the government should likewise focus on building and maximizing partnership, especially of local government units with civil society organization. And I agree with Mayor Hani, no? Maganda yung byword niya, co-governance. So baka pwede na natin yung gamitin sa mga susunod pang engagements. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you so much, Director Ana, Director Aris, and Miss Jing. Virtual clap po. Pwede nating i-click yung clap dyan. And also sa ating nanonood sa Facebook, pwede nyo pong i-click yung hearts dyan and likes. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. At this po, hindi pa po, patapos na po tayo, pero we have a closing message po. But before we go to the closing message, supposed to be we will have synthesis and ways forward. Pero unfortunately, si Miss Annie Heron na-disconnect din this afternoon. Really, we need to improve on our internet connectivity nationwide. But yeah, I'd really like to capture the major things that has been said and shared this afternoon. Particularly, thanks Miss Director Ana for going back dun sa buzzword natin this afternoon. We learned from Mayor Honey yung co-governance, if that can be highlighted. That's really what we aim for. That's really what we are trying to do. So yung co-governance. And then I'd also like to go back dun sa pinresent ni Miss Jing na 4 Ps. So the challenge now would be for all of us to think about how do we implement co-governance in the 4 Ps. Yung sa people, in terms of people, and then there's a lot of sharing from the chat as well. So let me just capture what I think struck me, no? So we need co-governance. Halimbawa, kung in the aspect of people, definitely we have to highlight that we have to involve the right people, and yung principle na leaving no one behind. So definitely yung vulnerable sectors natin, dapat kasama talaga natin sila sa pagpaplano, sa simula pa lang ng pag-uusap, sa simula ng dialogue and planning planning and budgeting. And then sa policy, in terms of policy naman, magandang na-capture din, and there was a very meaningful questions about ensuring transparency and accountability, dahil nga we will be talking about larger chunks of money and larger responsibility para sa ating mga local government units, and good for the LGUs and local chief executives who are embracing civil society organizations and private sector participation. Pero sana we see more of that, and we see all of our LGUs to be parang to have that same parang compassion and appreciation for the work of civil society. And then on the third one, on platform and processes, definitely there was a lot of mention about platforms. Ang daming opportunities na nandyan na. These are areas na covered by the local government code, na mandated talaga for CSOs to participate. These are spaces we have to occupy. And then in addition to that, yung mga local special bodies and the work is in the committees, the influence is there. So if you can grab that opportunity. And then also very crucial yung na-mention din ni Ms. Jing and ni Ms. Anna on monitoring and evaluation. And then last one, in terms of products, all of these kasi if this is talking about civil society participation in governance, ang gobyerno dapat talaga nakasulat yan. The plans, programs, budgets, reports, etc. Those are written and it undergoes that process of review and implementation. And so sana yung civil society natin will be able, parang maganda yung term ni Miss Jing, no? Yung makasabay tayo doon sa proseso na yon, and that we challenge ourselves as well to build our capacity para masabayan natin yung process na yon, especially in the next 3 years ng devolution process, ng transition, and in the years to come. Sabi nga ni Director Ana, this is an ongoing process. This is a journey that we are all in this together. Yon, so hopefully every year and every milestone we are improving and moving towards that goal of co-governance na ini-envision natin na ma-experience hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, so that's my takeaways as a form of synthesis. Let's now go to our final message, the closing message. Sa bahaging ito, papakinggan po natin mula sa Lead Secretariat ng PH-OGP Steering Committee. Siya ay ang Undersecretary ng Budget, Policy and Strategy Group ng Department of Budget and Management. Let's all warmly welcome Yusek Rolando U. Toledo. Hi, Yusek Rolly. Good afternoon po.
Yes, I'm sorry for that. I was late unmuted. Okay. Thank you very much, Bai. Okay. Thank you for having that comprehensive highlights of our webinar. Okay. It has been a very engaging and fruitful, more than 2 hours discussion. And I'm sure that we learned much from our resource persons and panelists as much I learned so much. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of chat messages that you haven't answered yet, but I'm assure you that we will send this to our concern bureau to respond to your issues and concern or questions that you have raised. Okay, at this time, let me thank our esteemed speakers, of course, Dr. Jing Lopez. And nice to see you, Ma'am. Doctor, to see you again and sharing your insights coming from the CSOs, particularly from the academe. Now, of course, to our Honorable Mayor Hani Lumayag Mati for sharing your experience, and it's much appreciated na pinaunlakan ninyo po ang aming imbitasyon. And it's unfortunate that Mayor Bowie Evardone was not able to join us. And of course, to our favorite and able panelists, when we speak of Debolusyon, no other than our Director Aris Makaspak of DBM and Director Ana Wanagwa of the ILG. So their sharing hopefully gave us with a clearer picture of how our partner CSOs and the general public have taken part in local governance processes and how the local government experience of the CSO participation has enriched governance at the local level. Yeah. So they have also presented to us with information on what we can further do to continue and engage the engagement and be involved with the local government for a more efficient and effective service delivery. So as we transition to the implementation of the Mandanas Garcia case ruling in 2022, we have probably participated in a lot of online activities given these limitations that we have right now, such as webinars like this one that provide us with information and encourage us to ask questions, raise issues, or provide feedback. This allowed us in government to solicit input or feedback from you, gather information, and of course, close the feedback loop by providing response to your issues and questions. As I mentioned to you, for those questions that were not answered during this webinar, definitely we will give to our concerned bureau to respond to your question, and we'll get back to you on that. So we continue to take advantage of this technology to provide us a safe space for platform to engage the public, our counterparts in the government sector in the discussions, or we call them the partners, okay? We've seen in the presentations how we have engaged the CSOs in local governance and what opportunities are available for government and non-government to continue working together. Hence, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank our non-government partner from the CSOs, especially to Ma'am Pat Sarinas, hi Ma'am Pat, the co-chair of the non-government sector in the PH-OGP. So marami po tayong kailangang malaman para mas epektibong makibahagi sa gawain ng lokal na pamahalaan upang maibigay ang serbisyong nararapat para sa atin, meaning sa atin, para sa ating mamamayan. I hope that you sustain the interests and more importantly, the work that you do on the ground in your localities that contribute a lot to better local governance. Katuwang namin kayo sa implementasyon ng Mandanas ruling. Andyan po ang gobyerno para sa inyo. This is both an invitation and a challenge for our partners that I am sure you're ready to take on. Muli, maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikisama or dito sa pakikilahok sa ating episode ngayong hapon. So, as an ending, let us all stay safe and healthy, and God bless us all. Thank you and good afternoon once again.
Maraming salamat, Sir Rolly. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for reassuring us that definitely this is going to be a continuing conversation and partnership between government and civil society. Maraming salamat, Sir Rolly. So for those na questions na hindi natin natanong sa live, hindi nasagot dito sa ating forum this afternoon, rest assured, iipunin po yan ng Secretariat. Ibibigay sa sa authorities kung sino yung nararapat na ahensya na sumagot sa mga tanong na yon, and these questions will be posted sa PH-OGP website and Facebook page. So please i-follow din po natin sila sa Facebook, OpenGovPH on Facebook. Nasa YouTube na rin pala ang OGP, PH-OGP Official. And then ang website ay ogp.dbm.gov.ph. Alright, so at this point, i-follow po ninyo yan, i-like and i-share sa ating mga kasamahan. And then at this point, we would like to invite you to fill up yung ating session evaluation form. If you learned something this afternoon, we hope to be able to give better and similar learning sessions in the future dito sa ating OGP. So, we're high-tech na rin po tayo. So, merong naka-display dyan na QR code. If you're using Android or iOS na phone, you can open your camera and then parang i-take nyo po yung QR nitong ating post-event feedback survey. And then it will lead you to a link, and the link is also there provided in the chat box. Pwede nyo rin pong i-click yung link na yan so that you can be redirected doon sa ating post-event feedback survey. And then we'd also like to invite you sa ating next na session. There's going to be a fourth session, hopefully next month. We'll be sharing with you details about this soon. And then would also like to encourage kung baka meron kayong suggested topics or mga gustong mapag-usapan further after hearing the presentations and the responses this afternoon, baka meron pa kayong gustong i-probe further. So please help us. Your feedback will be most welcome. All right, so yun po yung ating session this afternoon. And then there's another invitation po. We would like to invite you na makilahok sa ating Dagyaw Open Government Virtual Town Hall Meetings. May ibang regions who are already undertaking the Dagyaw OGP Virtual Town Hall Meetings. Meron tayong ikatlong episode sa November 26, and this one will tackle serbisyong medikal, paano matatanggap ng bawat Pilipino, and this is basically a conversation on public health. So if you want to register, i-flash din yata ang portal para sa Dagyaw, or baka ita-type in din sa chat box. All right, but for your information, it's dagyaw-reg-portal.com. So if you're interested and available to attend on November 26, you are invited to attend this one. Okay, what else pa ba? Ang daming pinapa-remind sa atin this afternoon. Mula po sa PH-OGP Steering Committee, both government and non-government, sa DBM at Code NGO, PH-OGP Secretariat, at sa mga miyembro nito at sa lahat ng partners, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsuporta sa episode na to and the series of webinars and learning sessions that we are organizing. Sana po nakakatulong ito sa inyo, sa inyong trabaho, and encourages you to be more active and aware of the aware of the developments at the national and local level, and then magkaisa po tayo na makilahok sa implementasyon ng Mandanas ruling in 2022. This is our ambag, di ba? Nagsimula tayo with Ma'am Pat saying na, ano bang ambag mo? And this one is one of the many things na pwede nating isagot sa tanong na yan. Ito ay ambag natin para makatulong sa tunay na pagbabago for the improvement of the lives of our fellow Filipinos. With that, magpapasalamat po ko again. This is by Riza May Anayatin from MinCode. Maraming salamat po for joining us this afternoon. We'd like to mention special thanks goes to Miss Jing Lopez, Mayor Honey, maraming salamat. She apologizes na hindi niya natapos yung ating session because she had to go to another meeting. But still, makakarating po kay Mayor Honey ang inyong papasalamat as well. Would also like to thank Director Ana Bonagua and of DILG, and also Director John Aris Makaspak of DBM. And of course, to Yusek Rolly for his closing remarks, and Ma'am Pat Sarenas for her opening message. With that, magpapasalamat ako. Thank you everyone, and mag-show yata ng video ang PH-OGP Secretariat. Thank you and assalamualaikum.
Angat lokal. Tamang pondo, angat serbisyo.